Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric, will begin momentarily. Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric, will begin momentarily. Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric, will begin momentarily. Our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists. This is Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric.
Our news chopper, Eagle 8 HD, live over the Pinellas County beaches less than a day after Hurricane Helene made landfall in Florida as a Category 4 storm. The death count in the southeastern United States at 22 and climbing as we understand it. A live stream beginning now here on Tracking the Tropics from WFLA Stream Center in Tampa, Florida. Welcome back in, folks, with Max Fendery, Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baradelli, and, of course, my stream partner, Eric Stone in the top right-hand portion of your screen, Max Fender 8 meteorologist. JB here with you. Let's go live now to Eagle 8 HD, and we're going to see some of the hardest hit areas in the Tampa Bay area because of what we've been talking about all week long, Jeff and Eric. Potentially historic storm surge hitting our area, even though the storm making landfall in Florida's Big Bend impacts, catastrophic impacts here in the Tampa Bay area.
This is the biggest surge we have seen in over 100 years in the Tampa Bay area. It shows you how lucky we've been up until this point. But it also, this storm gives you an idea of just how catastrophic storm surge can be from a big storm.
So we are currently live here at Reddington Shores heading south. So we had a chopper flight earlier from our sister station Wesh in Orlando. They headed north. We're going the opposite direction. We're starting north and now about to hit some of the harder hit areas. We are arriving now in Reddington Shores and Madeira Beach. And you can see that a lot of these streets, unrecognizable, a lot of these homes, suffering significant damage. And it looks, we said this earlier, it looks a bit apocalyptic.
This is Gulf Boulevard, and this is really the only way to go up and down the beach there. And, there's so much real estate exposed. And I think people are probably, even though we told them the numbers, one thing to say, 5 to 8 feet, it's another thing to see what that means and the impact that it has. And I think despite having lots of warning, I think this probably really surprised a lot of people as to how much water washed over the beaches.
There's so much love for this area, Eric. Love for our beaches, love for this community, just because, even if you don't have property in this area, when you talk to folks in Clearwater Beach, Indian Rocks Beach, down towards Treasure Island, you meet some of the kindest people who say that they live in paradise. So many smiles you'll encounter on the beaches here. It is so gut-wrenching to see an area that is so beloved get transformed in this way.
Yeah, many first floors had water coming in, and it's very difficult for hotels when their first floor is pretty much washed out. And then you see not just water, but it pushes all the sand, and when the water recedes, the sand's left over. So you have a ton of sand on the roads, on the parking lots, inside some of the buildings. It's a lot more of a mess than you might think.
What about the beaches, too? A lot of these beaches are not what they were before. Some of our beaches are amazing for the amount of beach there is. Sometimes you have to walk almost a mile to get from the road to the beach to get to the water. And a lot of people have been talking about how their precious beach is not what it was before the storm moved in. That looks like John's Pass right there.
It is John's Pass. That's where we're currently located. I'm monitoring Eagle's progress on, of course, flight radar. And we have Jim Farquhar in the seat in Eagle, moving the camera around and checking out all the damage.
Yep. I used to keep my boat right back there at Bay Pines Marina, right by the VA at Bay Pines. I know that area really, really well. So many beautiful homes. It's such a gorgeous area. It's going to take a little while to clean this up.
So there have been hurricanes in the Gulf before, tropical storms that have gotten closer than Helene did. What made this storm so catastrophic for Treasure Island, Madeira Beach, some of our Pinellas beaches that have been transformed by this event?
Huge wind field.
Yeah, that's exactly
400
right.
miles of tropical storm force wind from the center. And this still passed, about 100 miles or so
Yep, a
to
little
the
more
west
than
of
that.
St. Pete. But because of the huge area of this storm, it just created more devastation than some of the other storms that might have gotten a little closer.
Storms like Charlie, which were actually more powerful in some ways, didn't really produce much surge at all because Charlie was a tiny storm, which packed a wallop with its winds in a very small area. But this storm was huge. It was one of the biggest storms ever, that on record at least, at this latitude. And it goes to show you that storm surge is just as much a function of the size of the storm as it is the strength of the storm. Plus, by the way, this was a Cat 4 as it was making landfall, and it was an intensifying Cat 4. And by the way, there were 6,500 lightning strikes in the center of Helene when it was rapidly intensifying within 1 hour's time, which is a record for the Atlantic Ocean.
And we saw that. Remember that, JB, yesterday? Before it intensified.
On the northwestern side, right?
Before it intensified to a Cat 4, I said, wow, look at those lightning strikes. 610 minutes. This thing's really going to amp up.
Yep, and the lightning expert that I know, he posted about it. This guy knows his lightning. He's been working with lightning for years. He said this is the high water mark for the amount of lightning in an eye wall. And the reason why that's important, folks at home, is because the more lightning there is, the more rapid intensification likely that you are going to see. And that's what we saw with Helene, unfortunately.
As we're looking here
John's
live, for those of you just joining us, Eagle 8 HD is currently over. I'll get you an updated location. Currently over, really John's Pass, Madeira Beach, Treasure Island. That general area they're going to be bouncing back and forth, doing circles and surveying the area. Jeff, you're looking at this with fresh eyes. We had the Wesh flight earlier. Explain what you're seeing here.
I forget the name of that restaurant. It used to be Gators. Now they changed the name. We could probably look that up pretty quickly. I used to go here all the time. In fact, I've been there twice since I've been back here in the Tampa Bay area. But that building right there has been an icon for decades in the Bay Area. There's so many people. Is it Krabby's? It's Krabby's, yeah. Used to be Gators years and years ago. Man, wow, they sustained tremendous damage to their dock. And let me tell you, getting a dock repaired is no easy task. That's an iconic area. And look at all the sand behind there. I mean, everything is just wiped out with and wiped over with sand. It looks like the road is still sand covered in some places. That's Treasure Island as we make our way south.
Correct.
And really not much real estate between the Gulf of Mexico and the Intercoastal.
Look at all that flooding, Eric.
Wow.
All that water left
is
over.
Still there.
This is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I say our beaches are huge compared to other beaches in the U.S., at least in a lot of places. And for right now, they are compromised big time. Look at all that water just stuck there.
What does rebuilding look like?
Well, I mean, all the first floors, lobbies of all these hotels and all these condos and the houses, because there are some houses, obviously, too. It's a huge insurance situation. It's a lot of money that people are going to have to lay out. It's going to take forever to think about how many contractors you need to repair this. It takes years. And this wasn't even a direct hit. That is the crazy part about this. It's going to take years for a lot of these places. I imagine some of these places are going to be uninhabitable for a while.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get mold, mildew, stuff like that out. And, with standing water there for hours and hours and hours on the first floor. I know some of the newer hotels, when they're building them, they're actually having the parking area on the first floor so that if you do get storm surge, it doesn't get into the first floor of the rooms, which really would be the second floor.
That you bring up an interesting point because these new building codes since Hurricane Andrew have saved so many homes in Florida. And this idea of building homes on stilts or any kind of resorts on stilts, that is two things. It is a savior in the end, but it's so much more expensive, at the forefront that it's hard to justify for people to put that extra money in. But when you look at scenes like this, it becomes pretty clear why investing the money up front is so important, because some of these places will be out of commission for years probably.
Is that Gulf Boulevard right there?
Yes.
I mean, there's a ton of sand right there. A ton of sand.
There's a tractor.
Yeah. Something trying to get it out.
It's hard to see from this distance. Yeah, that's amazing. That's a lot of sand. Wow. That's hard to see.
We were talking a little bit about this earlier. Obviously, super high priority to clear the roadways. Access to a lot of these areas is extremely difficult right now. And for the area to get back up on its feet initially, at least, clearing the roadways is step number one. And then, of course, people can start to get back to their homes, check in on their various properties. It starts with probably roads, and then from there, it's power. We still have approximately 1 million people in Florida without power, many of them here in the Tampa Bay area, and it's not difficult to see why.
I'm having a hard time figuring out what those areas, those vacant lots are to the left and right of that blue building, but I have a feeling those are probably parking lots for municipal access to the beach, and they're just covered in sand to the point where we can't tell that they're parking lots. I mean, when you're looking at a scene like this, you just can't tell what you're looking at. That kind of, it's a story that explains itself.
Yeah, it does look like parking lots.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's one thing that's great about our area. I've lived in various parts of Florida. The beach access here is second to none. You go to Miami, you pay $40 to park your car to go to the beach, and you fight with a million people
It's
to try to.
competitive.
Yes, yeah. I mean, everywhere. St. Palm Beach, the whole beach is just private homes that are worth gajillions of dollars, and it's very hard. I mean, there are some public beaches on Palm Beach, but the bottom line is here. What makes this place so special is for everyday common folk like the three of us that are sitting here right here. It's very easy to access the beach. You don't have to fight with people. There's so many parts of the beach that's accessible to the public, and that's what makes this place so special to me. And there's more waterfront property here than pretty much anywhere because we have so many nooks and crannies on the Intracoastal and in Tampa Bay. I mean, I think per capita, Pinellas County may have more boats than any other place in the state. That's because we have so much waterfront property here. People are drawn to the water. This is the reason why we live here. And every once in a while, we pay the price to live in paradise. It's a pretty amazing pictures there. Sand all over Gulf Boulevard.
Yeah.
It is going to take a while to clean that up, but I'm really worried about the people who had water in that first floor of their homes and the hotels and the restaurants,
which is
and
most
everything.
Did you think it was going to be this bad, Jeff?
Well, I mean, as a meteorologist, I think in numbers, I think in science, and I don't necessarily think in pictures. So for me, 5 to 8 feet was, wow, that's going to be a lot of water. But it's hard to conceive. That's Blind Pass right there, I believe. That's the area around Sunset Beach. So it's Treasure Island that we're looking at. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to visualize it, Look at that. Look at all that damage.
Debris,
those docks completely destroyed. Those boats upended. Look, there's boats on land.
Not to mention all the debris that then is going to sink down as well. You can see it there. That's not very deep water. That's going to be relatively shallow, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, of course. That's like 3, 4, 5 feet of water.
Yep.
It's got to be deep enough for those boats. So it's probably at least 5 feet at low tide in there. One of the things when I lived in South Beach, I lived in Miami for years. After the last hurricane that hit that area, they pretty much stopped people from building new docks. One of the biggest problems in Miami-Dade County and even in Broward County is that it was very hard to build a new dock after the hurricanes passed and destroyed them, which also meant it was very hard to find a place to put your boat because there were no docks to put your boat. It really does create problems, and I do wonder how many of these docks are going to be able to be rebuilt legally or even realistically be able to get a contractor within the next few to several years. The people with lots of money will be able to hire the contractors for more money than the folks that are next door. They'll get their docks. Look, I mean, I'm not saying that, but it's stuff that you don't think about, of the years that it takes to really to come back from a situation like this.
So currently an updated location, we are, I believe, over Treasure Island.
Yeah, that's
but
Treasure
I
Island.
just just triple check, make sure. And yeah, but we're very close now to St. Pete Beach.
Yep.
St. Pete Beach right to the south. And yeah, I mean, it's jaw-dropping.
Mm-hmm. Water comes in. Notice that cove? The water funnels in. Mm-hmm. It's got nowhere to go. So you can imagine if the surge on the beach was 6 feet, then the surge there was probably like 8 or 9 feet.
Yeah,
you know, it's
at
just
least.
like that's the problem is everything gets funneled into those nooks and crannies and it's got nowhere to go. So it's forced vertically upward. And so oftentimes the surge is maximized in certain little coves. And that's what we're seeing.
And it doesn't
there.
take much to get those boats to be, on land, right? Only a couple feet of storm surge before they're floating up.
That happened in 1993, no-name storm. They call it the no-name storm down here. Rest of the U.S. calls it the superstorm of 1993.
We've got Jen Lee here in the Stream Center.
Jen, you looking to sit down?
As well. You can either sit down on the mic
You know what?
here
No,
between,
she can sit down here
Yep.
in my spot because I have to go prepare some weather maps. Ladies and gentlemen, Jennifer Lee is joining us.
Jennifer Lee is in the house, everybody. Jennifer.
Hello.
Good to see you, Jen.
Good to see you too, sir.
Yeah, I wish under better circumstances.
Agreed.
Let's take a look here live at Eagle 8 HD. Jim Farquhar, the one and only, manning the camera here for us in Eagle 8 HD. Have you seen anything from Eagle yet? I mean, are you seeing this for the first time?
I am seeing some of these aerial images for the first time. I've seen lots of photographs that viewers have sent in to us from places like Treasure Island, Paso Grill Beach, St. Pete Beach. But this is the first time that I'm seeing some of the effects of this storm surge from the air. And this is where you really see the story unfold when you get a sense of the geography of our coastal communities, these little nooks and crannies where water can pile up with nowhere to go. And then you can see the full effects of this damage. It's stunning in places.
We've had hundreds, maybe thousands of photos come in. And you know what I found really interesting? That you and I honed in on the same photo and we posted it to Instagram. You know that?
Really?
I saw the photo, you saw a photo, and immediately we probably thought, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Now, so from the air, obviously we have a bird's eye view from Eagle 8 HD. From the ground, it just looks a little bit different, and you get shots like this.
Like these. This is Paso Grill Beach, those vehicles. You know, I have a lot of questions when I see images like this, like who parks their car at the beach when we know there's going to be a massive storm surge, but I have no idea the backstory on these vehicles. Did those people have nowhere else to go? Were they visiting tourists, not really fully understanding the impacts of a storm like this? But I see those images. That's a beach that I go to with my family. Paso Grill is this beautiful stretch of that sugar white sand. And I could see where you would think surely the water wouldn't come up this far because there's a pretty good stretch of beach between the parking area and the actual water. But I see these images. The images on the right are of a beach that you're watching the aerial images of on the left. And I just have to imagine the power of that water to move that much sand into the hard packed ground. There's parking spaces under all that sand. That had to be just unbelievable force.
It doesn't look, it looks Photoshopped to me.
Exactly.
It doesn't even look like this is a real photo. It looks like somebody, took a tool in Photoshop and chopped a horizontal wedge off the bottom of each one of these two vehicles. But no, that's vehicles trapped in sand that has come ashore. And Eric, that's a result of storm surge.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens with storm surge. It doesn't just push water onto land, but it pushes the sand as well, especially if you have deep, loose sand. And maybe they were stranded. They realized, the water's coming up. We got to leave the car. The sand probably wasn't that high up on the car when they left. But then once the water recedes, the sand is left there. And that's what you see, those pictures. Just amazing.
An updated location. We are now moving south of St. Pete Beach, and we're moving actually towards the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. We're kind of that area now south of Pinellas County, moving a little bit closer to Manatee County. Yeah,
I think the way if I'm following the orientation there, that's the Gulf sort of on the left hand, and this would be the Intracoastal.
That's correct.
That they're going along now with Eagle 8 HD, and so you're starting to see, again, Eric, I'm so curious. This is the first time I'm getting to see all of this. When there's a storm surge on the Gulf, I understand it can push all that sand in, but what are the implications for the Intracoastal as well? Do those people really have to worry about the same kind of impacts?
Well, yeah, because the wind was out of the southeast, so the wind was actually blowing out way before Helene came in. So that's why Shore Acres, St. Petersburg flooded much earlier than actually Tampa Bay overflowed its banks. So both sides of the Intercoastal as well as the Gulf of Mexico. And then when you do have storm surge coming into the Gulf, it's pushing like that bottlenose effect from that large Gulf of Mexico into smaller bays, smaller, like Jen said, nooks and crannies. And you're going to get that storm surge on all sides.
So having any of that sort of false sense of security that I'm on the protected side of the beach, that's just a fallacy.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, especially when there's not much real estate between the Gulf of Mexico and Intracoastal there. So you're not safe on either side.
This is the Paso Grill Historic District. We're coming actually up on Fort DeSoto Park to the south as well. Fort DeSoto, very popular. Okay, so that's what we're talking about now. As far as vehicles being trapped in sand, it's just
unbelievable.
Something that you don't usually see.
And this is why city, county officials, law enforcement are restricting access to these areas because, first of all, they're not passable. And secondly, they've got to get a handle on what are we really dealing with here? How are they going to clear the roadways? How are they going to make it safe for people to adequately access their homes? Because keep in mind, this storm surge pushed all this sand, but it also pushed a great deal of water up against and probably into the lower portions of those homes and structures there. And I just hate to think about the damage that awaits folks when they finally are able to access those areas.
Look at some roof damage here. We were talking, Eric, about some roof damage yesterday, and with this being more of a wind event, there's actually been some surprise.
I was going to say that. I'm surprised
that there
we haven't seen more of that.
Roof damage, to tell you the truth. Yeah.
I was surprised too, last night when I left the station and I was making my way home, I was surprised I didn't see as many downed trees because it was ripping last night, some of those winds. And I'm surprised that I don't see a lot of that here too. We certainly received some images from viewers in some of the interior portions where there has been some tree damage, trees down because the ground has been saturated. But you're right, I hadn't thought about that before, that we don't see as much wind-related damage as we would in some other storms that I've covered.
I think the fact that we've had so many brush bys, near misses over the past few years, that a lot of the weak trees and whatnot, and maybe even some structures, had the damage a couple of years ago, like when Ian hit, when Nicole hit, even Idalia, so that we're not really seeing much of that now. Because wind-wise, this wasn't much stronger. We did have hurricane-force wind gusts, so that would be a little bit stronger than Idalia and Ian. But for the most part, the wind event was really quick. Helene was moving so fast, we only had a few hours of that strong wind.
A viewer texted me earlier today and said, "It's so beautiful today. I can't square that with the devastation we're seeing."
The contrast.
It is such a remarkable contrast, but it speaks to what Eric is talking about. This was such a fast-moving storm, and so it's hard to imagine that less than 24 hours ago we were just getting battered by this thing, and now it's just another beautiful summer day in the Bay Area.
Meanwhile, we have Helene that's moved in, even making its impact felt in the Midwestern United States. How many states is Helene going to have impacted by the time this is all said and done? A dozen?
Yeah, at least. Yeah. I mean, every southeastern state, plus Tennessee Valley, Missouri, Arkansas, the Midwest, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Mid-Atlantic states, Pennsylvania, Virginia. So really almost a quarter of the country.
Some of the flooding images that I've seen out of the Carolinas look like they could be in a coastal community in Florida after this storm. And they are not coastal Carolina communities. They're interior.
Yeah, we're talking the mountains,
Yeah.
Appalachians, and
It's really extraordinary.
Trying to find some of the photos and videos that we had in last night, because a lot of the videos that have been coming in via Report do tell a story. Here is the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. This was closed, and of course now is back reopened. This is a main artery for transportation through the Tampa Bay area, and of course crucial to traffic. But good to see that the bridge has reopened, and to no surprise, closed yesterday as a result.
I'm assuming the other bridges are open now. They weren't this morning.
They are getting open.
Okay.
Yeah,
The Howard Franklin Bridge has opened. The Gandy Bridge has opened. It's been slow going, though, because they've had to open one direction but not the other. Earlier today, some people were able to access part of the Selman Expressway connector.
Yeah.
But the Gandy and the rest of the Selman were
Yes,
not
that's
open.
what I heard.
So
They were stuck there.
For
Yeah.
hours, they were stuck. But JB is right. It's good to see that main artery of the Skyway Bridge open again. That also signals that the winds have died down enough, because typically I think it's 40 miles an hour.
40, yeah.
Anything higher than 40 miles an hour, and they have to shut the bridge down because it's simply not safe. You're so high up there, and high-profile vehicles are also at risk at those wind speeds. So that means we're finally returning to some sense of normal, at least on the roadways.
Yeah, it's the roads are step number one. You got to get the roads figured out so that we can regain access to some of these areas. There are still people that can't access their neighborhoods as a result of road closures, blockages that are occurring, especially up in our more northern counties as well, closer to where Helene made landfall. So an updated locator for Eagle 8 HD. They are now heading south into Manatee County. We are following I-275 south into Manatee County. So we're coming up now, Eric, on the greater Bradenton area. So what do we expect when we get across the bridge?
Well,
here?
I mean, there's still, there was still a good 4 to 7 foot of storm surge. We may not see quite the devastation as we did, in Pinellas County, but still, 4 to 7 foot of water being just blown inland with the sand. I think we're going to see very similar images in regards to that sand covering the roadways, in people's first floors. First floors ruined, of course. It doesn't take much water before, that mold and mildew will really, screw your house up, especially on the first floor there. So I think we're going to see very similar pictures to Pinellas County. Maybe not as much roof damage, but still probably docks that with the storm surge that were, collapsed, and a lot of debris with that water pushing onto shore. So much of the same, really. And then I think once we get, if we do go into southern Sarasota counties, maybe a little bit less of that.
And JB, I don't know if you've seen, we had some breaking news come into the news center earlier about a curfew on Anna Maria Island. The Holmes Beach Police Department says effective immediately, there is a curfew for all 3 cities on Anna Maria Island. That curfew is from dusk to dawn. No one can walk or drive around the island between those hours. There will be no power or water for several days. This is all according to the police department at Holmes Beach. This is for the safety of everyone, they say, and to protect the homes and businesses on the island. Marine Rescue is actively searching neighborhoods for people who stayed on Anna Maria Island and need help evacuating. Manatee County Transportation is providing buses to transport any of those folks to a Red Cross shelter. So as we continue our sort of southerly trek along the coastal communities, that's what's happening down in the Anna Maria Island area.
What I'm trying to find right now, I'm trying to locate some of the video that we had. And Eric, you were there for it, that we shot from downtown Tampa last night, right outside our building at WFLA. Jen, how many years you worked in this building?
Oh, in this building, well, we moved into this building in 2000, so 24 years I've been in this building.
You ever seen flooding like that on South Parker Street?
No.
I mean, we were trapped last night.
Yes. There was easily nearly waist-high water on Parker Street in front of the building. Yep. And then the river was up and over the banks on both sides, covering the Riverwalk to the east of us, and then up and over the wall towards our building and to the adjoining condo building that's next door to us. And we had some adventures trying to leave the building last night. Did you guys swim away? Is that how you escaped?
Well, I did not get home dry. Okay, now I finally found the photos and video. We've had so many photos and videos come in via Report It that it took me a while just to make sure that I had the right ones. We're going to add them up here and show these to our audience. Folks, check this out, because we've never seen anything remotely close to this. Now, to be fair, we are located on the Hillsborough River. We are in a vulnerable spot.
We are. We are in flood zone A.
Yep.
We are in flood zone A, but this is something that certainly I've never seen before at WFLA. And if Jen hasn't seen it, then I'm sure
it hasn't happened.
And Jen is 100, so there's.
I never said that. I never said that.
No, and this is actually not even the maximum amount. I mean, it was still coming up.
Yeah, I think we took this, 10:15?
Yeah.
9:45, it's up there. Yeah, so 9:45 p.m. and
it got worse.
Little did we know. Little did we know at that moment that was the time to make a run for it. But no, it got deeper and deeper.
I'm curious if people see this the same way, because you see just the surface of the water. This is at least a couple of feet.
Oh, it's at least 2 feet, if not, at max 3 feet.
That's a walkway right there. And then there's a street in front of it. And in portions, it's a 3-lane street because there's a middle turn lane. So you can gain access either to the condo building or you can turn right onto another roadway. But the water essentially went from the Hillsborough River into a cul-de-sac that is on the north side of our building, and then up and around in front of our building. This is the area where we would normally park our news vehicles. This is on the eastern side of the building, right up against the Hillsborough River. And that got 3 to 4 feet of water last night when I last saw it. And it's just, when I posted this video, a very similar video, People who have worked at WFLA over the decades were reaching out to me. They could not believe these images.
We are so used to seeing this. Might just look like another flooded parking lot or flooded parking area for most, but we are so used to this area, just every parking spot being taken up by a live truck or a station vehicle. So to see our primary parking area just completely flooded like this,
inundated,
is really surreal for us.
Gas cans floating, garbage can. I mean, we saw everything floating back there.
Yeah.
We'll load up some more things. You can send in your photos and videos to WFLA.com/report it. We'll try to feature them here on the live stream. If there's something you think that we should see, let us know. Of course, always be safe. Do not wade through any waters that you shouldn't be going through. Just make sure that you're safe out there, folks. That's the most important thing. There's no piece of content that's worth compromising your safety. All right, let's give a status check and check in once again with Eagle 8 HD. Current location, they are moving past Bradenton, south of Bradenton, so they're heading now to the Manatee County beaches. It looks like Jim and Pilot, I did not get the pilot's name for the stream, they're heading either to Longboat Key or Siesta Key. So what occurred, Eric, at the Manatee County beaches?
Well,
Sarasota County beaches as well.
Yeah, a good 4 to 6 foot of storm surge. And Siesta Key is one of those huge beaches where there's a lot of sand and there's a lot of area between the actual water and the parking lots and also the road. So I'm interested to see how much of that sand, is still left on the roadway. Probably a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some cars even just like we did at Paso Grill, where the sand is at least up to the tires for cars that got stranded.
It looks like our shot has froze here a bit as we wait for Eagle to resume contact with WFLA. Let's show everybody a video real quick as we wait for the signal to come back. It looks like we don't have this one from TGH. This one had a bug in it for some reason. I'll try to get this one loaded up. This is from Tiffany in Sarasota. I think this one also is experiencing a bug. We'll see if we can get that straightened out because there's some crazy flood videos that are coming in to report it right now, but it looks like they're still making it into our queue.
Well, and Eric, you can probably shed some light on this. A 4 to 6 foot storm surge, is there a way to equate that in terms of, is it true 4 feet?
4 foot above the mean water level. So basically, if your tide is 2 foot above that, then you're talking about what we call a tidal surge, which is 4 plus 2.
Okay.
So at high tide, it's going to be at maximum, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously lower tide. That's why we saw Tampa Bay, where the high tide was right around 2 o'clock in the morning,
right,
just before we were leaving.
Yes.
And that's why the water just kept going up when JB and I were out there at 9:45 versus 12:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30 when we left. It was so much of a difference.
Yeah, it was at peak.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's really caught a lot of people off guard, even though all of our meteorologists were sending out the warning saying there is an enormous storm surge potential here. We have been so fortunate in the past and had so many just glancing blows that I'm not sure many people, even in our barrier islands, were expecting the kind of impact that we saw here.
Yeah, the one thing I always say is if they haven't experienced it, they don't know what it is. So we can say, oh, it's going to be 4 to 6 feet. It's going to be 8 to 10 feet. And they're like, oh, I guess there's going to be some flooding. Yeah, I guess we're going to have some water.
Yeah.
But unless you've been through it, you don't know, you know, and a lot of people are brand new to the area. They move here from up north and now they've been through it. So the next time that we say 4 to 6, 5 to 8, they're going to say, oh, yep, I remember that. I know what's coming. So if you're not new to it, you know exactly what's on the way.
Yeah. Well, I was texting with some friends who they do have flooding in the South Tampa area out near the West Shore neighborhoods. And I mean, full infiltration into their house. And the text that I was sent this morning was, when they say evacuate, I will evacuate. Say it over and over and over again. Never again will I.
Well, and that's why you heard, was it the sheriff, JB, that said, if you don't evacuate, you write your name, your birthday, and all that on your arm or leg.
That's right.
I mean, yeah, some people may say, well, that's pretty offensive, but they're trying to get the point across that if we tell you to evacuate, especially where a Cat 4 storm is going to land, we mean business. You may not survive. I feel bad, and I've heard so many stories from Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel during Ian of people that didn't evacuate, and the water's almost up to their ceiling, and they got their head up there trying to breathe. And, unfortunately, a lot of people lost their lives because they didn't listen.
Well, and having covered hurricanes Charlie, Francis, and Jean in 2004, I covered Katrina, Wilma. I've covered countless storms. Here's the reality. If it doesn't impact you at your house, you feel like it was a big overreaction.
Right.
However, if you are one of those people right now in the Bay Area who had 3 feet of water in their house, this is the most catastrophic storm you've ever experienced. And we have to be sensitive to that as friends and neighbors and community members, that these warnings are for everyone, but not everyone will see the greatest impacts. And so we have to sort of learn to give each other a little bit of grace, I think, including our meteorologists.
Right.
We go, did you get it right? Well, for some people, they say you got it spot on.
Right, right.
Well, I think that there's, and as we look here at some more photos and videos, we'll scroll through here from WFLA.com/report it. I think there's something to be said about, well, one, that Floridians can be stubborn when it comes to
I'm a native.
Your weather,
Fifth generation
right?
native.
And then the other thing too, you remember the storms that hit you, and then you also remember the times that a storm didn't hit you. Think of how many people in Florida have done all the prep work to get ready for a storm that curved in the other direction. Then you think, oh my goodness, I did all this work. I boarded up my home. I did all these necessary things. And then the storm missed us. And then it's like, oh, okay, well. And then in future storms, they say, you know what? It'll probably just curve again. And it won't hit me this time. And then all of a sudden it does. And then you have a catastrophic life-changing event.
Well, I think we also need to be very sensitive to the fact and the reality that some people simply do not have the means or the ability to evacuate and to relocate. And the idea of that's why we open shelters. That's why we offer them,
Right.
Uber and Lyft, we're offering free rides to shelters. But sometimes that's a hurdle that's great for people to get over. Like, I don't know if I want to stay with other people. I don't know if I want to stay in an unfamiliar place. But we need to do probably a better job as journalists conveying to folks it's worth a little inconvenience in order to have a life-saving experience on the flip side. But I think we do need to be sensitive that some people in their hearts feel like, I can't leave.
Yeah, I know a couple of people that mentally they just weren't motivated to evacuate. Thankfully, it worked out okay for them. But sometimes you just get in that funk where mentally you're like, I just can't. I'm not going anywhere.
They have no more bandwidth for it.
Right, I have to stay here. Exactly.
Yeah.
And, well, let's continue to go through some of the photos here. This is from Perry. We've been
That's
talking
the
about
one
Perry.
I've been. Yeah, that's the one I saw last
the
night.
McDonald's sign coming down. We're scrolling through some of the more significant photos that we have received of damage and impacts to the area. Jen, I also know that you have shows to worry about.
I'm watching the clock. I've got 2 more minutes with you because I'm also. I mean, these images I'm seeing for the first time. Some of these, so I'm really interested, as many of our viewers are, to see what is happening in other parts of the state.
Selena sending this in from Perry, one of the harder hit
And this
areas.
is basically where Helene made landfall.
Also, monitoring Eagle, by the way. We are still frozen on the Eagle shot, so hopefully we can reposition and get them back from Manatee County, Sarasota County. Continuing on here, checking out Perry. Look at, is that a...
That looks awfully upside down to me.
Yes, that shed looks like it was blown across the street.
Wow.
There was a video I think I saw on social media of a shed making its way across the road. I don't know if this is the exact same one, but I mean, it clearly is upside down.
Yeah.
Again, in Perry, Florida. Another one from Perry. This is a tree resting on not one, but several power lines.
That's always so scary to me. For residents, for crews that are out trying to, emergency responders, these are the scenes that make me very nervous, having covered storms before.
One more from Perry, Florida, from Selena. And again, just damage to a lot of different structures in an area that got walloped by a Category 4 hurricane, basically after the sun went down last night.
Yeah, it's even scarier at night because, especially if you're out and about and you're kind of walking around and next thing you know, something's, blowing toward you and you don't see it because it's pitch black. All the power's out. It's just a scary situation.
This is from Harborside Grill. This is a restaurant on the Causeway in, let's see here, 4103 Causeway Boulevard in Tampa. And, I mean, clearly, flooding here inside the restaurant that caused Harborside Grill to get,
Wow.
I mean, the owner to get a really rude awakening upon going inside.
Yeah, that's rough to see.
A lot of businesses taking a hard hit.
And that's water there, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a little dark. So, yes, my goodness.
This is from Tiffany in Sarasota. This one failed to load. We'll continue onward. We saw this one from Vicky. We saw this one from Selena. Oh, okay. Some of these are duplicates. We're going to move down the list and come back to this from Luke. Dumpsters in the middle of the roadway.
This is just unbelievable to me. When you think about the power and the force of water to move those, it's just incredible.
It can move cars,
Yeah.
and so anything that's so heavy that you think is not going to
Impossible.
float, guess what? It is. But then after, when the water recedes, it's just dumped there. It's just left there.
Yeah.
And if you're driving, on a 55 mile an hour zone and you're going 50, 60, and all of a sudden here's this dumpster right ahead of you and you can't slam your brakes in time. That's why we say stay off the roads immediately after a storm.
No doubt. Well, fellas, I hate to leave you, but I'm going to go do a little newscast. I
See
appreciate you letting me.
Coming up
Yeah.
in the 5 o'clock
The
hour.
5 o'clock hour, but thank you for
Thank
letting
you.
me tag along on this image tour. It's been enlightening.
Jen Lee, you'll
For
see
us.
here on WFLA News Channel 8. You always see her on WFLA News Channel 8 with Keith Cate
Yep.
on the anchor desk in the broadcast studio. Thanks, Jen, for coming
Thank
by.
you, gentlemen.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it, folks. We are checking in on what the deal is with Eagle because we have lost signal now for a period almost around 10 minutes, it might be. So literally typing out a note to our team to try to find out what the deal is. Hopefully we get that back because the purpose of this live stream was to share the Eagle flight with our audience. They might have landed. We'll get an update here momentarily, I'm sure. Oh, there it is. Eagle is refueling. So let's continue on with Report It. And this one we just saw from Luke. Let's continue onward and show some more. This one is from Michelle. Tree snapped. This is St. Petersburg. We talked about the Chick-fil-A sign that went down. Not the Chick-fil-A.
No.
Steven in Tampa sending this in. Boats dislodged in St. Petersburg, Florida. Some more here from Preston sending this in. This one, I mean,
Yeah, just
I don't think
beach
this
boats.
photo does it justice how big this sailboat is. It's huge.
And how far away from the water it actually is.
Absolutely insane. Okay,
That's pretty.
take us through some science here. What are we looking at from Debbie? This
Well,
is from Crystal River.
We're looking at Helene, and we're looking at cloud formations. We got fast-moving clouds. They're spinning, they're circulating, and heavy rain bands coming in. And, we saw so many cool cloud formations, JB. Remember a couple of days ago on Wednesday evening and then into Thursday as well. This is just another one.
Eagle is refueling. We have confirmed, double confirmed, if you will, that they're going to be back up shortly. Continue to look at these shots from Debbie. This
That's
is
interesting.
pretty interesting.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty strong band there coming in. Yeah, almost looks surreal, huh?
Yep, that one there too.
Yeah. Is that all Crystal River?
All Crystal River.
So that's all part of the same band that came through. What time was that at? Does it say?
Let's see. Coming back to it. See if maybe, just maybe, Debbie included a timestamp. Yes, she did. Thank you, Debbie, for doing that. 6 o'clock on Thursday night, heading north on Highway 19.
So what I can do is I can pull up what our radar looked like at that time.
That's pretty cool.
So let's go back. It'll take me a little while to manipulate this.
Again, to our audience, if you're looking for Eagle 8 HD, we The shot froze entering Sarasota County as a result of them landing in the Sarasota County area on the south side of Tampa Bay. They are getting fuel, and we'll be back up shortly.
Okay, so let's fast forward this to 6 o'clock.
Give me a computer. I'll bring it up.
Weather 4. So yeah, this was part of a rain band. It was probably looking off to the south. So there's 6 o'clock, and so here's US 19 in Crystal River. One band just passed. She could have been looking to the north, but that looks like a pretty strong one. So I would say this one was pretty close to the Spring Hill area, and this moved northward. So she's in Crystal River, and as I put this in motion here, you can see it pretty much moved due north. And right after that, here comes an even stronger band at 20 after 6 that I'm sure produced pretty cool cloud formations. And this one had a lot of wind in it. We didn't see any rotation, but it's looking like those clouds are associated with one or both of those rain areas.
Can you bring up a current model, or I can switch a certain computer? Because we just got in an update that I think our audience is going to want to know about, unless I missed this earlier.
An update from Helene?
Yeah,
okay.
Because the most recent advisory is in, and folks,
post-tropical. Yeah.
We are officially post-tropical cyclone Helene as of the 5 o'clock advisory. Can you break down, like tier-wise, what this means?
Well,
Eric?
the effects are still the same. We just don't have the warm core all the way up in the throughout the atmosphere. So it's still packing winds of 35 miles per hour. It's just it's not a tropical system. It's what we call extratropical. Again, it's just really terminology. The effects are still the same, right? We're still seeing pretty strong wind, 35 miles an hour. It's still producing quite a ton of rain. In fact, let's move this a little bit to the north. And I mean, look at that. All the way up into Chicago, Pittsburgh, even Buffalo, New York. So, this rain extends pretty far north of the center of this. So just because it says, hey, post-tropical, cyclone, it's over, it's done, Helene is gone. No, it just means it's extratropical. It just means, a nor'easter, right, JB? Nor'easters can be as strong as hurricanes, but they're not warm core systems. Obviously, they're cold. I mean, they've produced winds 80, 90 miles per hour in Cape Cod, hurricane force wind. And just because we don't call it a tropical system doesn't mean that it's still not strong and still not, creating havoc, which this one still is.
When it is over, good riddance.
Yes.
Sick of talking about Helene already. I'm just going to have a bit of a human moment. Sick of this storm. I want it to be shredded apart.
I hear you. And it is.
Just be done with it.
It's going to take another day and a half, but...
To the NHC, retire it. Don't want to have to say it again. It's already caused enough pain and suffering for people in our area, pain and suffering that is still being realized today, and probably will still be realized into the coming days, months, perhaps. You're right.
Yeah.
And so this one needs to just be torn apart and put away for good. I mean, I think
I agree.
I speak for everybody that
I agree.
We hope that this is just not causing any more disruption, although I did follow the story out of Tennessee where there was a group that was awaiting rescue on the roof of the hospital. I mean, talking about impacts, I mean, Florida is no doubt going to see the most significant impacts, but Georgia right behind it, portions of southeast Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, northeastern Mississippi, into a little bit of Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia, and maybe some fringe impacts being felt in some northeastern states in the hours ahead. I mean, we were talking about this, right? I mean, it's like taking a car and driving into an Arby's, and we were, trying to compare it for people and saying, okay, it's going in at a rate of speed where you're not just going into the dining area of that Arby's, you're going into the kitchen. Maybe you're going even past the kitchen of the Arby's.
You're going right through it to the other side.
Yeah.
For this thing to stay almost near hurricane strength as it headed toward Atlanta, like really, and hurricane force wind gusts, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
Especially with it coming from the south. I mean, if you had a Category 4 hurricane hitting Savannah and moving directly toward Atlanta, the chances of that still being a hurricane in Atlanta would be, I would think, less than what we saw from the panhandle of Florida gaining, a lot more ground, all the way from the panhandle to Atlanta, and that's still producing hurricane force wind gusts. You almost have to have the perfect storm to get that in the Atlanta area.
Wow. Yeah. No. I'm gonna try to bring up this video, and we'll see if we can courtesy it. In the meantime, this was sent in by NayJ on YouTube. And I'm going to do my very best here to just kind of let this play. NayJ, I don't know if I'm going to do my best to get the courtesy on screen. So stand by here. So it was sent our way, NayJ, Crystal River drone footage. I give you permission to use my footage. Please credit me if you do decide to use it. And it was posted to YouTube. So what we're going to try to do is play this out. So just give me a moment here. I'm going to try to route this in, you guys, and see if I can bring in AJ's video.
And what I'll do is try to get the actual radar up so you can see where the rain is falling right now.
And I think we have it. All right, NayJ, the burned in courtesy is there, and giving you courtesy. This is on YouTube, NayJ's channel. Let's play this out. Rebecca, feel free to come sit down if you'd like. We're about to see some new drone video from Crystal River. And let's bring it up here and look at it here as we await Eagle 8 HD coming back up. So this was Crystal River, and this was sent in, let's see here. I'm going to read it as follows. Hurricane Helene, Crystal River, Florida, storm surge aftermath. 1 hour, 30 minutes south of the brutal Category 4 hurricane that impacted the Big Bend of Florida. And you can find this at NEY.J_ on YouTube. So guys, we'll do a little play-by-play here and kind of just evaluate what we're seeing.
In and one way out of Crystal River, that main thoroughfare there. And so to look at it, you can see it's still underwater in this case.
Yeah, it looked like a couple of stalled out vehicles too in the beginning of this.
It's about approximately a 5.5 minute video. So we'll just let this play and just check out what we're seeing here.
They were expecting about 10 to 15 feet of storm surge in this area.
And this was just, is this from this afternoon or this morning?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's clearly daylight, so I would imagine it doesn't say exactly what time.
Just judging on the lighting, it looks to be morning lighting.
Yeah.
It was a little more clear this morning.
I'm curious if NayJ's in our comment section. If you are, say hello and share a link to the video. We'd love to give you full credit. We'd love to get your view count up if that's what you're, of course, if you've done a lot of hard work to get this video out on YouTube. Totally understand that. And we would love to give you credit and send some views your way.
Wow. A lot of people most familiar with Crystal River for the manatees there and
yes,
how you can swim with them near the manatees or snorkel with the manatees.
I don't see any on the road. There might be. I don't know.
I hope we don't see any manatees on the road.
Animals are smarter than people.
Yes.
They hunker down for storms. They don't go out and frolic.
They were probably gone 2 days ago.
Drones are great tools to capture. Drones and choppers, to me, capture videos from really different vantage points, right? This is going to be anywhere from 200 to 400 feet up in the air, while a helicopter is usually going to be, I don't know, somewhere between 8 to 1,400 feet, roughly, normally. So different altitudes, different vantage points. We can get kind of closer here, and that closer vantage point gives us a view like this, which is certainly unique.
This is why they ask you not to drive through floodwater. See how those trucks are creating a wake?
Yep.
Imagine if the water levels were just up to your door but not quite over it, and people kept driving by and those waves entering your home. That would just be heartbreaking.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that, you know, a lot of these people stall out and then what are they going to do? Then they're stranded. Then they're walking in that contaminated water.
Mm-hmm.
I will never not be grossed out by post-storm floodwaters. A lot of sewage in it, a lot of bacteria, a lot of fertilizer runoff.
That's why it appears brown, brownish yellow. I mean, look at all those vehicles that are still navigating through that.
If you do that, go through the car wash a couple times because that is salt water.
Yeah, thankfully on the way home, I had to take a couple detours. Ashley was closed. And then when I got off on Columbus, there was some areas that were closed. So the traffic lights out, even some railroad crossings. I have a friend of mine that actually is really into trains and railroads and whatnot. And he said when the tracks near a switch get flooded, it somehow triggers the lights and it triggers the arms sometimes. And I guess that's what I was dealing with this morning.
Oh no, the preschool.
Oh, what a mess.
But it looks like if they clean up those branches, they should be okay. They'll be in good shape.
Yeah, it looks like the building's fine.
So what's the I mean, fire trucks through floodwaters, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
you
would
don't see that
imagine
too often.
they are graded to be able to go through flooded streets to a certain extent. But I'd be curious to know what's the
Well, that boat
where's
is.
the cutoff? Hey, the boat is in good shape.
Maybe the boat's
I
stuck
think
now.
that's our operator, right? Is he flying the drone?
He might be.
Oh, yeah.
That might be. Maybe that is an AJ.
I thought for a second it looked like he was holding controllers.
I don't know. Fire trucks, Rebecca. I imagine just like any other vehicle, if the water's up to your exhaust, that's
Yep.
pretty much it.
It is higher and heavier, so it's going to get through more than a traditional car would, but not as much as this little boat.
And you can see the wake right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good.
Is that a
you know,
four-wheeler or a
6
boat?
inches.
What was that?
I don't know what that was.
I think that's a four-wheeler.
Wow. But I mean, look at that. The wake that's creating.
Thank you to AJ for sharing that video from Crystal River, Florida. We really appreciate it. Drone video is really, really helpful. We have a fleet of drones here at WFLA, and we use them from time to time, but it can be difficult in storm situations because, we're handling so many gear. For a storm photojournalist like a Joey Capistran, right? It's about being as mobile as possible. And when you're carrying so many gear already, including lighting to light your talent, it can just be a little bit challenging to have even more gear, like a drone.
All the batteries.
Yeah.
All the batteries. You're only getting about 20 to 25 minutes of flight time on a good flight.
Yeah.
So it can be a little bit challenging. If you're joining us here live on WFLA's Facebook or YouTube page, perhaps on WFLA.com, live here with meteorologists Rebecca Barry and Eric Stone. And we are awaiting Eagle 8 HD getting back in the air above Sarasota County, Manatee County. I think continuing its flight over the beaches, our survey flight to check out the damage to the Tampa Bay area, some of the hardest hit areas in the Tampa Bay area. Guys, let's just kind of move beyond the beaches for a second, because the beaches are going to get a lot of attention because of storm surge. Were there some other spots, inland spots, that have popped up to you that were trouble spots with Helene in particular?
The Alafai River is flooded, which is unfortunately pretty typical of the
Yeah.
Alafai River. It is one of our frequent flyers, so to speak, as far as flooding goes. It was such a coastal storm, though. The focus this hurricane season has been on messaging inland flooding from rainfall, but this wasn't the case with this until it got well inland. Now, there's 40 people standing on the top of a roof and waiting to be rescued from flooding rainfall. Miles and miles and miles and miles away from the storm. So the inland rainfall threat didn't occur until much, much later than usual.
Yeah, and I mean, in regards to wind, obviously, unfortunate accident with that sign on 275. But I haven't really heard of too much in the way of, trees down on the roadways. I saw, a lot of branches and stuff like that, but I could navigate, my way overnight last night. But I just haven't heard or seen all that much of that. Still, we have a lot of pictures and video of trees snapping and branches coming off, but thankfully, maybe that wasn't as widespread.
We've got some new stuff coming in to report it in just the last few minutes. It's funny, every time we throw up the QR code or the URL graphic on screen, we just get a ton of submissions. So we're going to add a bunch more to the queue. It's going to take about 60 seconds to load in another 20 or so pieces of UGC. So we'll get that loaded in. As we look here at radar, Rebecca and Eric, the latest here. Is this now just rain with a name, so to speak?
Well, pretty much. There's still a few of those isolated bands on the right-hand side of the screen.
Are those tornado warnings in the red?
Yeah, and those were pretty much the what used to be the outer bands that affected us and really caused all those tornado warnings here, mainly in the southern areas and inland areas. Again, I didn't see any confirmed tornadoes from Storm Prediction Center, so I know there were a couple of areas that were suspicious. Maybe the National Weather Service will check them out. But basically, what you're seeing on the right-hand side, in coastal Virginia and near the Outer Banks, Chesapeake area, are what's left over of really the outer bands. And so there's still a few spin-ups there. Other than that, you see one even in southern Ohio, but on the western side, you've got that upper level low. So again, you really have two systems kind of combining into one and eventually shearing away, so to speak, as this moves to the east.
All right, so we got Eagle back in the sky. You see it there in the bottom left-hand portion of your screen. We'll get back to that full screen.
Fish.
Once they get back, showing just some more videos that have come in. Joe in Madeira Beach saying that on his sidewalk, found the fishies.
All right.
Let's continue on and show some others that came in as well. Selena and Spring Hill, some flooded roadways here. There's a marker there on the left. It's too small for me to read, but
there's a car for sale now.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yep, Selena and Spring Hill.
Not even for me, that would be a deal.
We saw this one. This was from the other day. Let's continue on. Okay, more from Selena.
Now that could be a bunch of stranded cars.
All right, so Citrus Discount Pharmacy in Spring Hill. She sent in a whole bunch for us. Velvet Smoke Shop. Signage down in the water.
Detour down.
Yep.
It looks like that same plaza. Muffler shop. Looks like they're going to have...
Look how high the water was at the side of the building.
Yeah, you can see it there.
Yeah.
Wow. It's hard to tell how much water that is, how high up that is.
Looks like at least 2 to 3 feet. Well,
I see the doorknob, though.
Yeah.
Wow, this is a very impressive shot from Tallahassee. We were talking about some of the old trees in Tallahassee and how they would come,
This is what I expected.
Down.
Yeah, I expected a lot of trees down in Tallahassee and Georgia as well. Well, you're from Georgia, right, Rebecca?
Yeah, there's a lot of trees
So
available to be down.
Yeah.
Selena just did a whole photo dump. That was why we had all of these new photos come in, and I got an alert for a bunch. So, Selena,
Look at the oil sheen on the water there.
Yeah, you're center stage here as we wait for Eagle to get closer to the beaches. Thank you for sending these in, by the way. Again, our audience members, our viewers here, are helping us document a catastrophic event. Our news crews can't be everywhere at once, so this is very, very helpful to get in storm damage videos and pictures from around the area. Yep, flooded roadways that are going to be impassable for some time.
That's the thing. You could be driving on a road, and then all of a sudden, like that last picture, you see some water, and you think, oh, I wonder if I can make it to the other side. And it's really not worth taking a chance.
All right. Thank you, Selena, for all those photos. Blake in Ballast Point Pier, some damage there.
Oh, no. That's right by the Leon's Lobster Shop.
Jim taking this drone photo from this afternoon. A good segue. Is it video? Looks like it tried
It looked like it jumped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, no, this is video. It's just a very quick clip.
Looks pretty from that point of view.
All right, let's get to Eagle. We're back, and I'll get an updated location. Let's see exactly where we are. This is Longboat Key, Eric.
Okay, so this is where the curfew's at, correct? I believe. So let's see if we can see sand. Yeah, you can see some sand on the roads. Not impassable, not there anyway. But a lot of the reason these areas are on curfew is because of the loss of power. And they don't want, people coming at night when it's dark, looting, robbing places or whatever. It does look like a little bit more sand near that marina that was on the right-hand side of your screen. So here it is. Again, much of the same as we saw in coastal Pinellas County.
Jim is scanning with the PTZ camera mounted on the belly of Eagle 8 HD, and you can tell he's really zoomed in here.
He's looking for devastation, really.
Clearly, it's good to see that the storm surge has receded. How long did it take for the storm surge to kind of fall back?
Not
in
really
line?
long. The high tides were, kind of late at night, overnight, just after midnight, 1, 2 o'clock. And, I think a lot of the Gulf water, at least in Pinellas, receded sometime in the middle part of the morning, early morning, mid-morning, once the tides became lower. Obviously, we saw Beth Russo up in Citrus County, and that was, close to lunchtime, 12 o'clock. And there's still a ton of water up there. When you have 10 feet of storm surge, it takes a lot longer than if you have 3, 5, even 6 foot. And again, we did see, on the it was near St. Pete Beach, that water that was still sitting there on the sand was, still puddles and lakes, as I say. And there's some standing water there as well.
We've seen a lot of this. Even when the storm surge recedes, standing water can persist for some time. Let's see here. Just checking. So Jim is circling around Longboat Key. I'm curious to see if Jim makes his way north to Anna Maria Island or if he's heading south towards Siesta Key. I guess we'll find out.
A lot of sand on the road, JB, there.
Yeah, look at that.
I think a lot of first floors were inundated with water. And unfortunately, when that water recedes out of your house, there's a lot of sand left behind. During Ian, I had a friend of mine that had a house in Naples, Vanderbilt Beach, if anyone knows that area. And, I said, can I go inside? I wanted to see what it was like. And you could see the watermark almost to the ceiling and,
Wow.
and sand and dirt on the floor, like I was walking in sand, like I was walking in part of the beach. I mean, it is, how we say a car is totaled. It's almost like your house is totaled if something like that happens.
And the impact on your life, your routine.
It's awful. It's just awful. They had clothes in the closet, and the watermark in the closet was probably up to my neck. And you saw on the clothes where all the dirt and the sand and everything, where it came up to in the house. And you think, man, how could it be 5 foot, like inside the house? And that was Naples. That was far away from where Ian hit.
Just want to confirm for our audience. Funny, now Jim is spinning the camera back around the other way. Okay, so I'm trying to get an idea as to where Eagle's focus, because we were moving north and now we're turning back around. We'll see exactly what Eagle's up to.
I think he's trying to maybe see the status of that bridge.
We were closing in on Anna Maria Island, and now we're.
I don't see anyone traveling on that bridge.
We are returning south now. Now we're in the southbound direction.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that bridge is closed. It sure looked like it. I didn't see anyone, and it looked. The water had to have come up over that bridge in its lowest spot. Yeah, see all the sand?
Yeah, it's Longboat Pass.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that bridge may even be open. And also, yeah, they've got it shut down. There he is. Maybe that's what he was trying to show. But I think when a lot of time when surge comes over a bridge like that, you want to make sure the structure is still sound, right? I mean, you don't want to just say, hey, the water's receded, whatnot. You want to make sure it's still safe to go over that.
Our weather anchor, Val Simpson, has sat down. And I'm just letting her know that we have a mic open and she's invited to join the conversation. She's been passing along important, crucial weather information in Espanol on Tampa Hoy, Noticias Tampa Hoy. And so...
in the dark and in the light. Oh, tell us about the story. Yeah, we like stories. I don't either.
It's okay. We're mostly letting, of course, Eagle 8 HD be up full screen. So,
well, hello everybody. Is my mic on?
Your mic is on.
Okay, great. So that's a story that I'll be able to tell. I don't know if you guys want to hear about it. How's
Sure.
everybody doing? How's everybody feeling so far?
We're good. Let's just hone in here on this for a second. Let's just give a quick locator here, Val, and then I want to hear from you. Hold on. This is now okay. We are moving north. This is Bradenton Beach, where you can see that sand has really covered the roadway. Look at this.
You see the dumpster and see how close that road is to the water, JB? That's why it's virtually impassable.
And if you look at it on let's say Google Maps, Gulf Drive North is right on the water.
Right,
there is
right.
There's virtually no sand between the roadway and the Gulf of Mexico, so it's not surprising that there would be a lot of sand on that roadway. It's just so skinny of a barrier island.
And the beach, there's not much between the water and the buildings and the road. It's not like Siesta Key or Clearwater Beach where you have, a wide area of sand. It's right there.
Now we're coming up on Anna Maria Island and Anna Maria Beach, and so let me, if you can see it on a map, perhaps I can bring it up here for a second. Yeah, you know what? Let's. I can show everybody, full courtesy, everybody, to Flight Radar. I'm going to bring up Flight Radar full screen to show everybody this really quickly.
And look at that sand.
One moment.
Reminds you of Fort Myers Beach, huh? After Ian,
Yeah.
with all the sand on the road. In fact, Fort Myers Beach did once again have a couple foot of storm surge.
Yeah.
And I've seen some video. I saw a drone video just like this where sand is everywhere. And it's like, oh boy, here we go again.
Yeah.
We got to clean it all up.
Did you see Margaritaville, which is
I did.
the new?
Yep.
Apparently they got water too on that first floor.
All right,
Did
so
they
check,
on the
that
first
area?
floor?
Yeah.
check this out. This is Flight Radar. Here's the Tampa Bay area. Here is Tampa, right? We're located right here in downtown Tampa. We're coming out of downtown Tampa. And now on the south end of Tampa Bay, there's this point that sticks out right here. That is Anna Maria Island.
Such a great area.
And here is Eagle 8 HD now approaching Anna Maria Island. So really, the entryway to Tampa Bay past or really getting towards the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, you're coming up on Anna Maria Island on Eagle 8 HD. And this is a beloved area. That's why I highlight this. People love Anna Maria Island. It's really a signature location in the Tampa Bay
And you saw the
region.
bridge right there on that map.
Yeah.
That was the bridge that we were looking at that is closed to get on.
Full credit there to flightradar24.com. I mean,
What a great tool to
it's-
show the map.
to monitor air traffic and to show the
Yeah.
map. It's great.
Yeah.
All right, Val, take it away.
Well, last night, this happened around 10:15, I take it, 10:20, 10:15, in the middle of the newscast, our Spanish newscast, Noticias Tampa Hoy, and all of a sudden, we lost power. Power went down in the entire studio. But obviously, the show must go on. We are professionals. We continued going along. Just so that you guys get an idea, the cameras were down, so you couldn't see the anchor or myself, but you could see graphics full, meaning that anything that was coming out of the control room was actually visible to our audience who was tuning in. So we continue with our newscast. And, there were some computers that were on backup. Luckily, that's how we were able to kind of just push through. And then, at the end of that newscast, we said, okay, what do we do now? Because we heard that the generator here at in our newsroom had some issues, and we only had about 30 minutes left or so. That's what they were saying of electricity. So, but we were able to push through. We finished that newscast, and then we were kind of just trying to figure things out with the engineers to see what was going to be the next course of action. And I understand that the English newscast was able to resume this morning at 4 a.m. as we went through and navigated through the issues. But I spent the night here at the station, if anybody wants to know. And let me tell you, one thing is being in your 20s and sleeping on an air mattress. Another thing is being in your 40s and sleeping on an air mattress. Luckily, we were able to get power back during the overnight hours. We were able to get some AC
Did you
flowing.
have the teleprompter going? Or was
The
that off?
teleprompter did work for Paola
that's
Suro,
good.
who is our anchor, and she was able to do it, yeah. And for, obviously, well, for us, it's all ad lib, but I was able to get through all my graphics. We had a lot of information to go through. That was right about when Helene was about to make landfall. So we wanted to make sure that we were communicating all the pertaining information.
Did you go home at all? Or
This morning when I woke up, I did. I went home because, I mean, even though you spend the night here, it's not the same. You really don't get
of
any
course.
sleep. I was really nervous, to be quite honest. And then finally when day broke and I could see that it was daylight outside, it just makes you feel, there's something about seeing the
Yeah.
sunshine that makes you feel a little bit better.
How were the roads? Like, was there
The
still any water
condition
outside
that I
of our?
found, no. And let me tell you, I did try going home a few times last night. I kept going out to the front of our news station, and then I tried going around. There's an apartment complex. I tried leaving that way, but it got pretty gusty when I tried leaving, and the rains had picked up, and I was like, okay, this is a sign. I just got to stay in. And I think that if I could have perhaps made it to the parking garage and gotten in the car, I just did not know what I was going to be bumping into if I was to drive around. And I thought that it was the safest thing for me and anybody. You have to think also, who do I call for rescue? My husband or a rescue team. And I'm like, I don't want to put people in that situation. And I just decided to spend the night here. But this morning, early morning, before 8 o'clock, I was driving around, and the water had receded in most of the areas that were inundated last night. But you could see a lot of the debris.
That's the problem. That it's what it leaves behind. Jeff and I walked around the apartment building. He said,
did?
"Yeah." He said, "Oh, it's not going to be too bad." And next thing you know, I mean, we're in knee-deep water. So
Right.
I kind of chuckled. I said, "Jeff, this isn't too bad." He goes, "No, this is fine. It's only knee-deep." And I heard somebody up on one of their balconies, and I
Yeah.
yelled out, "Hey, is somebody up there?" And this girl says, "Yeah." I said, "Hey, can you let us in the side door?" Which was still knee deep.
Right.
But at least we didn't have to walk all the way to the end.
Right.
So she was nice enough to let us in. We went out the front door. But
Yeah.
by that time, because when we went out at 10 o'clock,
Yeah.
there was nothing there.
Right.
Well, there was a good foot to foot and a
yeah.
half of water at 1 o'clock in the morning when we went out the front door.
Right.
But it was nothing. It's like, well, this isn't knee high, so we might as well just go.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went down Kennedy to Ashley,
Yeah.
the police had Ashley closed off
Okay.
to the right.
Yeah.
And then, so I went left to 275. I got off exit 3. I
Yeah.
think that's Columbus.
Yeah.
And then I started to head down toward Progress Village is where I live. It's
Okay.
west of Brandon, north of Riverview.
Yeah.
So I start going along, and all of a sudden, emergency vehicles have the road shut down because there's more flood water.
Right.
It's like, oh, I guess I got to turn around. Here we go. And I'm
Yeah.
just praying that I can get. And then, I looked at my options on GPS, and I
Yeah.
was able to make it back. So I was a little nervous
Right.
coming in today.
Yeah.
The railroad crossing signs, some of
Yeah.
the arms were down because of flooding.
Right.
And some other ones were blinking.
Yes.
Yet the arms were up and there were no, and then some traffic lights were out. So I'm like, boy, this is interesting. But,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
hopefully
No,
that'll be.
I guess that today was a day that absolutely, if you did not have to, go anywhere, it was a good idea to stay home. That's why a lot of the counties in our Tampa Bay area will close their
Guys,
schools.
I got to step off the mic for a second. You guys take the stream. Hold on.
Yeah, so definitely, if you don't, if you didn't have to go out today,
was-
did you see the people in line for the Howard Franklin Bridge and
Yeah. Waiting for the bridge to open
Yeah,
because they
they-
needed to go back home.
crazy, isn't it? And they
That
were on the
was-
Selman, the connector, and they didn't realize that it was closed.
Yeah.
And they're just sitting there for hours and hours because they got
Yeah.
nowhere to go. You can't turn
They
around.
can't turn. Yeah.
Yeah, so
It definitely very eye-opening what we saw with Helene.
yeah.
Again, I mean, for a hurricane to just pass by in parallel to our coast at about 100 miles.
But yeah, about 100 miles from St. Pete. Yeah.
So it's just it just really puts things into perspective. It makes you wonder what would it be like if we had a direct hit, if we were able to see these indirect impacts without that direct hit.
Yeah, and I mean, most hurricanes don't have wind of 400 miles from the center, tropical storm force wind, that is. And that was the big factor that really, propelled this storm surge.
Yeah.
As you can still see Eagle 8 HD flying, and the roads, basically, you need sand buggies to go on these roads because that's all it is. It's water that storm surge that inundated these areas, and then once the water receded, what's left over, the sand. It doesn't
Yeah.
take the sand back with it.
Right.
If it did, then we wouldn't have a beach. It
Yeah.
leaves the sand.
This is going to be days of cleanup here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe even weeks to months in some areas.
believe it.
Because, we saw, because you and I lived in Fort Myers for quite a long time.
Yeah.
We saw the aftermath of Ian, and we saw how the first and even the second floor of some of the hotels on Fort Myers Beach,
Yeah.
all the way down toward Naples Beach, and even further up in Sanibel, we saw how the first and second floor were just gone because they were
yeah.
completely underwater. So that's one thing that it takes a long time to rebuild.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when they do rebuild, the first level, as you've seen at Fort Myers Beach, is an actual parking lot. So that, if you have 8 or 10 foot of storm surge, you don't get the damage to
Yeah.
that first floor because the first floor is actually underneath the first floor.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm joining.
Okay. Jeff Baradelli, our chief Met, is going to be joining the conversation.
And I'm sitting back down here as well with a small update, but I'll pass that along here in just a moment. Let's see where Eagle is. Let's update people on where we are looking at presently. Eagle 8 HD continuing its survey flight over Sarasota and Manatee County beaches, currently over Anna Maria Island. What kind of damage have we seen? I had to step away for a second. What kind of damage have we
Just
seen?
a
from
lot
Anna
of
Maria
sand.
Island?
A lot of sand,
Yeah, I didn't see any kind of roof damage, but as I was telling Val, I'm sure that the storm surge water inundated first floors of houses and hotels. But yeah, just a lot of sand just washed up on the roadways, as the roadways are very, very close to the actual water itself in this area.
You can see the water left over there, which wasn't able to get back out.
And that looks like an empty lot that may have been,
Yeah.
destroyed by another system. Who knows?
It's hard to believe that a hurricane that passes 100 miles away, is not a direct hit, can be this disruptive and this damaging. It's going to take us so long to recover from this on our beaches. I mean, it's hard to believe that this could happen from a storm that's we said it, we knew it, we predicted it exactly right, where it was going to go, how strong it was going to be, how big the storm surge was. I mean, literally 100% almost forecast,
yeah.
and yet to see this and to realize, holy cow, this is going to take us years for everything to kind of get to the point where we don't notice anything anymore, where everybody's home is repaired, where all the restaurants are back up and running, where, I mean, it depends on where you are. Obviously, it's worse further north, a little better further south. But, I mean, obviously, we're going to get back to business in a couple of weeks and, but things won't really return to completely normal for, I think, at least a couple to a few years. And that's not, and this is not even a direct hit, which is the crazy part.
Yeah, we talked
we were
about that
talking,
last night
yeah.
in Fort Myers with Ian. Places that I've went to many, many times, I'm sure Val has too, that are not there anymore around Times Square and around Lani Kai Cottage area. And, they haven't even built anything there yet in 2 years. It's still nothing.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and it may be nothing for a while.
I mean, that's the problem. There are only a limited number of people who can work, and it takes months to repair some, structures. I mean, you would need every contractor in the U.S. to make it converge on Florida to get this done in a few months, and so it takes years because of it.
Even the cleanup was almost a year, just getting all the debris from the buildings that collapsed.
But apart from the cleanup and the rebuild, I think also the fatalities that we saw with this hurricane that wasn't even a direct hit for us here.
Yeah, and
in Tampa, St. Pete.
And you guys have seen the video of what's happening in the Carolinas. Oh man, I mean Asheville, feet of rain on all those cities. Just it got hit so hard. Dams in possible failure.
So why was it a rain event for a spot like Asheville, but not a rain event as much for us? Is it because the eye had the most concentrated amount of precipitation? Is that what it is, or because it wasn't a rain event for us, but we're hearing about.
Well, it also combined with that low pressure system too. So for us, it was only Helene, and it did move pretty far away to our
and
west.
Fast.
Right, but for them, they had really two systems that kind of combined into one.
The eastern side of the system, the bands of rain were kind of spread pretty far apart, and they didn't get stuck over any one area for a very long period of time. When this storm moved north, it did drop about 15 inches of rain in the eastern panhandle, western Big Bend. And when it slammed into the mountains, and that's really the biggest story here, is when you take a system like this with all this tropical moisture and you literally force it into the Appalachians, all the water just gets squeezed out. You get enhanced rainfall rates, and the water, and they're not, we can get 10 inches of rain in several hours and be okay. We'll end up with bad flooding, but it's not catastrophic. Whereas there, you cannot produce 10 to 20. And by the way, there were a couple of spots that had over 20 inches of rain in the mountains there in North Carolina, South Carolina, northern Georgia. You cannot produce that much rain in such a short period of time and not be absolutely devastated because the ground is not sand there.
Here's some roof damage in Holmes Beach, really Anna Maria Island. We were talking about roof damage earlier, and there's one spot.
At least it's not as widespread as it could have been.
Absolutely. I need to pass along a note for our audience. A little bit earlier on, we had a series of pictures from a user who submitted photos to WFLA.com/reportit. These photos were from a particular area, and I want to just make sure that I have this correct. I believe it was a series of photos from Crystal River, and I want to just make sure that I have this 100% correct. I'm sorry, Spring Hill. So a series of photos were submitted to Report It from Spring Hill earlier. The actual photographer of those series of images is actually a photographer by the name of Nick Holmes, and he has a company, Higher Perspectives Drone Photography. So I wanted to make sure that the photos that were coming in from Spring Hill earlier are properly attributed. That's a really huge thing for me, is making sure that the actual authors of photos and videos, people that send in stuff to Report It, that they get the credit that they deserve. It's a lot of work to get drone photography or to professionally capture photos and to document what we're witnessing here. So again, Nick Holmes of Higher Perspectives Drone Photography. Apparently he has cleared usage for his work to be shown on WFLA later on today.
Can you share them?
Yeah, and what I'm going to do, Val, is I'm going to share on the WFLA YouTube page. I'm going to shout out his Facebook page. I just would like to send some love to Nick's way because somebody else sent in his work and it wasn't with the proper attribution. So now I have the opportunity to just shout out one more time. Nick Holmes of Higher Perspectives Drone Photography. You'll see his work a lot tonight on WFLA News Channel 8. He does great work. I've seen a lot of his work thus far, and go give his Facebook page some love because
Look at
it's great that look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's surprising because the wind gusts were really, restricted to about 75 miles an hour. So we're barely hurricane force wind gusts, although the wind is stronger on top of these buildings than it is on the ground.
Right,
Probably
of
about
course.
15 miles an hour, possibly stronger up there. So I guess if your winds were gusting to 70 at the surface, they could have been as high as like 85 miles an hour up there. So that is conceivable.
And this is Manatee County, so maybe not quite as high as that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely hurricane force gusts.
Yep.
And thankfully, Jeff, not for as prolonged a period of time this time around due to the fast forward speed.
I mean, it was moving at a pace that few hurricanes at that latitude achieve. And at the same standpoint, and that brought the damage way into Georgia and into the Carolinas because it was moving so fast. And also its size was the size of very few hurricanes at that latitude as well. So this storm it intensified about 50 to 55 miles an hour in 24 hours. So that is rapid intensification, but a lot more than that because the criteria is 35 miles an hour. So that's almost extreme rapid intensification.
Yeah, and it intensified between 11 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock in the evening. 30 miles per hour?
Something like that.
Within a 9-hour period of time.
Yeah, we keep seeing these storms that rapidly intensify up until landfall, and I say it over and over again all the time. When you have a storm that is intensifying up until landfall, it always causes a lot more damage than storms that are weakening.
How lopsided was this storm, so
Very.
to speak?
You mean on the eastern side?
Yeah,
The
of
eastern
course.
side was like 3 times bigger than the western side. Yeah.
And so but I mean, I feel like we cover a lot of storms here on Tracking the Tropics, and I feel like a lot of them are lopsided. So it's hard to tell, is it moderately lopsided?
No, this was
extremely
Heavily lopsided. Yeah, heavily. Yeah.
I think winds only extended 85 to 100 miles on
You mean the tropical storm force
the
winds?
tropical storm force winds on the west side of the storm.
That's right.
versus
And like
400.
something like that on the eastern side.
Now, so given that being about a 500 mile diameter, is that the biggest for this latitude?
I thought it was a little. What I was saying was 400, but I don't know what the end number is. I'm not sure what the official number is.
Right.
But they said it was in the 90th percentile. But I think they kind of.
I think it's more than
yes,
that.
I think they kind of insinuated as it was making landfall that it was even more rare than that.
Right,
So
right.
I would say it was somewhere in the 95 percentile. So essentially, 1 out of every 20 storms, maybe at that latitude, is that big.
Speaking in terms of math and statistics, close to 3 standard deviations.
Yeah.
From the norm.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Wow,
That's why the entire state of Florida was under a tropical storm
That's
watch.
That was an interesting picture he just showed. It looked like part of whether it was the porch of that house was completely fallen over and collapsed.
This one right here?
Yeah, on the left-hand side. I don't know if he's going to,
I could ask the control room to flip in audio so that Jim can hear us, but I know that he's balancing a lot because we're currently in our newscast on WFLA News Channel 8, so a little bit of juggling for Jim.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just kind of let him do his thing without having to hear us, but clearly a lot of debris, and a lot of this cleanup is going to be tedious.
Yes.
It's not going to be convenient.
I mean, there's only so much gear that you have, only so many personnel that you have.
See the car there? And
All that sand.
And that's what I expected some of those to be slightly buried in sand up to the tires.
Looks like
How are they gonna
sand
get
in
the
the muffler.
The sand is got to be, Jeff, the hardest thing to clean up.
I mean, you need a crew. You need a crew. You need machinery. That's why I say it takes so long to really get back to normal. It's amazing. We're down south of Tampa Bay. That storm made landfall like 140 miles northwest of Tampa, and yet that just goes to show you how big this storm was. That it was able to push that much storm surge even south of Tampa Bay.
How does this relate to beach erosion?
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Well, beach erosion is the waves kind of taking the sand and eroding it away and then depositing it, hundreds of feet, hundreds of yards inland.
Exactly. So,
or the opposite, back into the ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to all the beach replenishment projects that we've had, the beach nourishment projects that we have had in recent years, how much is this undoing the work that has been done to take care of our beaches?
All of it. And this is a controversial topic no matter where you are. Anywhere in Florida, anywhere in the U.S., whenever you have beach renourishment projects, someone's paying for it with their tax money, and then the next year a big storm hits and it's gone.
It's gone.
Sometimes it's gone within just a few weeks or a couple of months. So it's this back and forth, this push and pull between people who want beach renourishment and people who are like, don't use my tax money to do that. It's always been very controversial.
And I'm sure they're hoping that, beach renourishment is going to, bring in more tourists and bring in more dollars that way.
Yeah, but oftentimes it's done on beaches that are fairly
Right.
private, where there's just, where not that many public beaches are, and where it's just a lot of private homes. And that becomes really controversial.
Right.
I just think that if this continues to happen more often, it's just going to steer people away from wanting to develop or invest. Or
It has me. Look, I would love to live on the water. I would love to. The thing that keeps me from buying property on the water like this is this
You would have to
right
deal with
here.
this.
It's
Yeah.
dealing with these storms and the vulnerability of these systems.
Well, what's interesting. I'm glad that Val brings that up, because something that comes up when I talk to folks and far away from a camera or a microphone, we've had such a surge, an influx of people post-pandemic, really during the pandemic and post-pandemic to Florida. People moving from northeastern states like New York, Pennsylvania, the Midwest, like Ohio or Michigan, Minnesota. People saying, my goodness, look at Florida doing so great. Look at Florida surging. And there's a lot that Florida has to offer. We don't have, a state tax taken out of our paychecks. That's
true.
pretty nice.
Yeah.
So
perk.
is now, as far as just the natural checks and balances, is this going to be something where perhaps does this get people's attention enough that maybe they don't want to sign up for the occasional, whether it's once or twice a decade, that massive storm that could wreck your life?
Like Jeff said, I mean, he doesn't want to live in the immediate coast, but he
don't.
still likes to live in the area. I mean,
right.
he's not going to live at the immediate coast, but he
Right.
still likes to live in the area.
Yeah, Florida, it's still paradise. It's the price we pay for
Yeah,
living in
so in direct, answer to your question, JB, for 3 months. Because people have a very short memory.
Yeah.
Very short
So what
memory.
you're saying is, Jeff, is that when folks in Michigan, New Hampshire, Vermont are buried in 6 feet of snow,
I know all about that.
in 3 months.
they're going to look at Florida and with Christmas time, the New Year, and really January, February in the 70s, and be like, man,
Yep.
Florida sounds pretty
Well,
nice.
We'll take our chances. That's what they're going to say.
Snowbirds, JB, don't come down in August or September or usually October. Right. They wait until Thanksgiving, Christmas. Oh, wait a minute. Is your weather good now? Yeah. Okay, we're coming down. And when do they go back? Oh, it's getting a little humid. We go back up in May.
April. Yeah,
Sure,
May.
but if you're going to buy a property, so here's the thing.
Insurance, you got to.
This whole area, unfortunately, and all of Florida coastline is going to be gentrified, because at this point and after this storm, it is going to be really hard for homes to get insurance on the coast. You'll probably still be able to get it, but it's going to cost you a lot more.
Yeah.
And so what that means is all the people that are middle class folks, like all of us sitting here, there's no way we're affording
it's gonna
insurance on
price
this
us
stuff.
out.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is only the people who can afford the loss can afford to buy, and that really thins the pool out for how many people could actually buy there. What you end up with is knocking down smaller homes and building much bigger homes of people who are like, you know what? If my $2 million home gets washed into the sea, whatever, I have another $10 million in the bank. So that's what's happening in a lot of Florida. We're going to see a lot of gentrification on our beaches.
I really think it's an interesting, conversation. But to your point about snowbirds, Eric, I don't know how many people can afford to live in two places.
It's tough.
It's
It's tough. I mean,
It's tough.
I grew up in New Hampshire, so my parents have, a house up there on a lake called Lake Winnipesaukee. It's one of the most beautiful areas up in New England. And here's an interesting fact. New England does not have a state income tax. And believe it or not, one of the only states I know that doesn't have a sales tax. So when you go out and buy clothes, when you buy a car, you don't pay
sales tax?
You don't pay tax.
New Hampshire?
Yeah, in New Hampshire. You don't pay a tax on the car, but they really get you. I mean, they got to get you one way or another,
Yeah, of
right?
course, yeah.
Property tax.
Oh, property taxes
So-
are very high in New Hampshire.
Right. So, my parents, they've got 4.5 acres of land, and they pay $12,000 a year in property tax. Now, it's a lake view, so it's worth something.
Yeah.
But I think it's people like that where, I love to go up there in the summer. It's beautiful. And so I go up there, and, when I retire someday, I'll go up there in the summer, and then I'll come back here in the wintertime.
I
I'll
like
be
your
a
plan.
snowbird.
Well, the people
got a plan.
What the people do is they rent. That's
Right,
it. They're
right,
they
right.
it's like, you know what? You buy the property. You
Right, deal
you,
with
you know, you can deal with the
Insurance.
with the vulnerability,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to rent your property for 3
Yeah.
months. But
Yeah.
there's a large cost for renting. And now think about this: we're headed towards snowbird season, and there's not going to be nearly as many properties that are going to be able to be rented
Yep.
on our coastline. Still looking at Anna Maria Island there, JB Longboat
Yeah.
Key.
Yep. I'm going to get an updated location here for you. And I'm typing in a poll right now because now, you know, I'm curious as to what people
What's
think
the
out
poll?
there. Let's, I'm punching in. I'm going to start it here in just a second, Val. But yes, no, we're still looking at Anna Maria Island. Just confirm. In fact, that's a beautiful view
yeah.
right there.
Levels of water all across the Bay Area, and as
On WFLA. We have more after this.
there was, I can't remember now, what was it, over 10 feet of surge in the Battery? When I say the
Yes.
Battery, I mean Lower
Battery Park,
Manhattan.
yeah.
Yeah. The financial district.
Yeah, to watch that, because I'm originally from Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Staten Island, lived in the city. I was down here. I was in Miami. I was a weatherman down there when Sandy hit, and I just remember watching it on Twitter because it was when Twitter had when social media became like the place where you could get new information.
We're talking about Sandy.
Yeah, we're talking about
Sandy.
Hurricane Sandy. That was so unexpected and devastating. Boats were washed miles away from where they were supposed to be. Yeah, that was a memorable storm in New York.
All right, so I don't know where we got cut off. It was right around 5:45.
The
We
poll.
asked.
You were talking about the poll, yeah.
Does the chance of a hurricane hitting influence your viewpoint on moving to Florida? I realize it's not exactly the best poll question for people
Yeah.
that currently live in Florida, but I'm just interested in what people have to say.
I almost feel like a better question would have been: would it stop you from
from
moving here?
moving, yeah.
Because influence, yeah, of course, everyone is influenced to some small degree. Some people are like, yeah, I kind of consider it, but I'm still moving. Other people's like, yeah, I'll never move because of the hurricanes. So almost a better poll question is: would you change your plans to move to Florida because of a hurricane? Because of the threat of a hurricane or something?
You mean if it influences your decision? That's what you just said.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. But I still okay. Yeah, whatever.
But also,
I'm being nitpicky. I'm sorry.
If you
my
live
fault.
how about if you live in Florida, is this kind of pushing you away from the Sunshine State? So
Yeah.
maybe it's the same poll. People that live
For
in Florida,
Floridians.
you can answer. You can say, well, if I'm here in Florida, would I be more likely to leave now that we've seen these increase in hurricanes,
I
or
think,
it doesn't bother me, I'm going to stick around?
I think that if it's Floridians that have been affected by a hurricane, they might consider leaving.
True.
That's what I think. You have to have been affected by a
And then
hurricane.
when they shovel 6
meaning-
feet of snow, they're going to say, I want to come back.
Well,
That's almost an impossible poll for us to run because
Yeah,
we'd have
it
to
is.
ask people that were directly impacted.
Yeah.
right.
I think what's going to force people out is the money that it cost for homeowners insurance. I don't think it's necessarily the fear of being hit by a hurricane. I think it's the fear of how much it's going to cost to live in paradise.
Just the
Because
inconvenience.
That's really
too.
heartbreaking because then you think about the people that say it is worth the risk, people that love this area so much, Jeff, that they would do anything to live here. But what you're saying is it's going to be so expensive, it might push them out of the
people
state,
away.
even if they want to live
The cost
here
of
more
homes
than anything in
may
the world.
push
Yeah.
people away, not let alone the insurance.
That's true.
Right.
I mean, it's,
Both.
especially people on a fixed income, it's becoming more and more difficult. I guess we'll see if we can somehow fix, the insurance problem that we have here in Florida somehow through policy. Maybe we can get some relief to people. But I think ultimately, I don't know if this trend will continue, but in the past 10 years, we've seen 22 hurricanes make landfall in the Gulf of Mexico. 10 years, 22 hurricanes make landfall in the Gulf. I mean, that's a lot more than we used to see. So if that continues, if that is kind of a look at our future, then we are really going to have to redesign policy and the way that we deal with these disasters if we want to make it affordable for people to live here.
And can we talk about what's going on in the Big Bend area? Like what's happening?
Well,
we got hit by 3 hurricanes.
I think
in the
too
last-
that
Within
they were
a
gonna
year
try-
period of time, really.
I think we were going to try to get our helicopter up there too at some point, but I don't
see.
know. Yeah, I don't know what our coverage plans look like with Eagle. Jeff is going downstairs, of course, to chief.
Newscast. Chief Matt has to do
chief-
some weather.
Chiefing is a verb,
He has
right?
to chiefing.
So being, of course, the chief meteorologist on WFLA News Channel 8 at 6 o'clock. But yeah, I mean, Big Bend. I mean, I would love to see the aerials of the Big Bend. And
I mean,
document
we're
what's
talking
going
about
on there.
Debbie that just happened weeks ago. We're
Now, they're
talking
not-
about Idalia.
Eagle 8's not going there today, right? They're not going to
When
Big
are they
Bend
planning
today.
on going?
No, definitely not today.
No. This is local.
But Eric, what is it about that Big Bend area that is almost a magnet?
Well,
for
I mean,
these
That's a good way.
hurricanes?
A magnet is a good
had
way of putting
been,
it.
It had been for quite a long time. And then all of a sudden, 2 years in a row, there's 3 storms that hit. But you look several years before that, and at Michael, I mean, you look at storms that hit, Panama City westward, or Ian, or anything south of Tampa, and it's more what what a lot of people were asking, and one person did yesterday, was how come the East Coast of Florida
Yeah, what is
hasn't been
going
hit?
on? I was about
So-
to say that. Why are they
Which-
not getting any hurricanes?
Which, in my opinion, fronts and troughs have been really digging into the eastern part of the country a lot sooner than later, it seems, like August-ish, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have a storm forming in the Atlantic and you have this huge trough sweeping down on the East Coast, now it doesn't obviously bring the cold fronts into Florida, but it kind of sweeps those hurricanes. So how many hurricanes have we seen over the past few
Yeah.
years?
When
Here
was
it
the last-
comes, and guess what? It takes a turn to the north and northeast. It's a fish storm. Here
What-
comes another one, Isaac,
yeah.
Joyce.
When
like
was
all
the
of them.
last hurricane that hit the East Coast of
So,
Florida?
so Dorian was close. I would say Dorian was the biggest threat to the East Coast because, I mean, all eyes had that thing at being a Category 5 at 175 hitting Palm Beach, right?
Yeah.
And then it moved slowly, and all of a sudden it stalled right over the Bahamas, and it brought them just nuts rain and wind, and it was just Category 5 wind, and it wasn't weakening for
Yeah.
days. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I believe that might have been 2020. It was quite a long time ago.
Wow.
It was 4 or 5 years ago. But we haven't really had a brush by since maybe, was it Hurricane Matthew? I can't remember the last one, but it's been a lot of years. And you could attribute that to climate change, but you could also say, hey, all of a sudden these fronts and troughs are pushing out into the Atlantic, and they're steering these storms. Maybe that Bermuda high isn't as strong as it was before. And so it's allowing these systems to push these storms out of here.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is, but all of a sudden we're seeing storms forming and staying to the south. And maybe because those fronts and troughs and these upper level lows are coming close to us, it's kind of pulling these storms into the Gulf like it just did with Helene.
Right.
So Olivia asking there, will Eagle 8 HD be going north to Clearwater Beach? We prioritize our flight schedule based on hardest hit areas. And so that was why we really focused on Madeira Beach, Treasure Island, and then move south towards Anna Maria Island into, of course, in the direction of Longboat Key as well. We might be flying over Clearwater Beach, but I know the priority right now is to hit Manatee and Sarasota County beaches, and then probably head down to refuel. This is the second Eagle flight of the day. I do not know if there will be a third one. We will find out from our newsroom as to what the coverage plan looks like.
That's amazing. And this just, they were able to repair, right? They were waiting for a part, JB, in order to take flight.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Do you want to know what's interesting about Eagle?
Yeah.
So as of several days ago, the air conditioning unit blew.
Oh, I did hear about that. Yeah.
Let me explain. We have a photojournalist here by the name of Jim Hockett.
Yeah.
Jim's a tough cookie.
We love Jim.
Jim can take it. And he went up there without AC thinking, you know what? I'm going to crank down the window.
What?
Maybe open up the door, let my leg hang out. Everything's going to be fine.
Wow.
He cooked. I mean, he said up there it was unbearable.
Oh my
it was
God,
brutal.
Jim.
You know
And
what that's
so-
like? It's like a magnifying. Remember
Rambo.
when you were a kid and you saw the ant?
Yeah.
And the sun shining?
Yeah.
And you take the magnifying glass and the sun goes right through the glass and it burns the ant up.
tin can.
Well, look at a helicopter, right?
Yeah,
it's
it's a tin
nothing but
can.
glass.
Yeah.
It's nothing but windows where the
Yeah.
sun is just beating down on you, and next thing you know, it's 150 degrees in there.
Oh my God, poor Jim. I can't even imagine.
I just know that it was on Davis Island, and so it was tough to get to.
Yeah, so the air conditioning unit was on order, got delayed, and arrived just in the nick of time,
Just in time.
to get installed. And now Jim Farquhar, I hope, is icy cool in the seat of Eagle 8
I'm sure he
HD. But grateful that the part made it in time for us to be able to, because this type of coverage would not be possible. They would be
it's so necessary.
baking up there. So we've been told that Eagle is going to be in the air for another about 5 to 10 minutes before they have to head back to refuel. This is, again, a look at Anna Maria Island. They are showing this on WFLA News Channel 8 at 6 o'clock with, of course, our entire award-winning News Channel 8 team. And we're tapping into the signal here in the Stream Center on WFLA now on Tracking the Tropics. Hey, it was crazy last night.
Yeah.
That's
an understatement. Yeah.
I mean, for a million reasons, it was crazy last night. But we lost power at WFLA. And Eric, we were the only room in the building with power.
Yeah. It was like in our little
Indian burial grounds here.
in our little window here, we didn't see anything. But I was like, wait a minute, it kind of looks dark out there.
Oh wait, you guys didn't know that we had lost power?
Well, of course we did.
But we had to
Val,
look.
I mean, we can't. This is our vantage point. So
Right.
we didn't know the
Yeah,
broadcast
it's true.
studio lost power. We didn't know.
No, we didn't know anything. We see this bright light.
So wait, so the streaming center is under a different generator or a different
we don't know.
power back? How did it not lose power?
I built it. That's why.
There you go. See, I told him if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have all this.
Flex. No. In all
Big flex. Big flex.
In all seriousness.
But I did notice you guys kept going. I was while we were trying to figure out where I was going to be spending the night.
Right.
I did notice you kept going, and I saw Eric sitting here and Jeff and you, JB.
Well, yeah. And what was cool, Val, is that we had the newscast. We had the WFLA newscast at 11 o'clock.
It was airing
Here.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
And-
amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing that you guys were able to do that.
And had rave reviews.
Oh, that's very kind.
Wow.
We basically took the Stream Center on the 11 o'clock news.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, congrats to you
And,
guys.
and we went on
did
WFLA
not know-
until what, 10 after 12? It was late. And someone came in at what, 10 after 11, quarter after, said, well, you only have a few minutes left. The power's going out.
It was Gary who said that we
Yeah.
were about to lose. We were.
Oh yeah, I
he
remember.
said any minute, 5-10 minutes, any minute, and then it was any second. And an hour later, an hour later, we still had power.
Yeah.
And we saw a flicker on out there, and it was the biggest cheer.
Oh, I was
since
part
the
of
Patriots
that.
won the last Super Bowl.
Oh, no, the
wait a minute.
Buccaneers.
Since
Wait, wait, wait.
Tom Brady won the last Super Bowl.
Oh,
okay,
yes, I
definitely,
know.
because I did cheer for
But
that.
did you see what happened right
and then
after?
it went out, and then it went back on, and that was when Tom Brady
Yeah.
came out of retirement.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it went back out, and then he never came back, and I got sad.
I know that we've gone off here and talked about FLA and the Bucks, but just look at this.
Yeah.
These homes are hitting
Yeah.
hard, and sorry to go pull a 180 on you there, Eric, but
No, it's
this,
true.
This is rough.
Look at
right
the
here.
thick
No,
sand.
these are hard
I mean,
images.
That sand is pushed up against that rock wall, which I'm sure is a good 5-6 feet, right? And that sand is at least halfway up, almost all the way up on that one side, on that left side. So it just goes to show how the water that pummels right into that rock wall is really pushing sand on it too.
It's
Yeah.
that's rough damage. I wonder if that structure is. I mean, is it a loss? I mean, I'm not sure. I would imagine repairs are possible, but
If it's only a
some
single
tough decisions now, right?
If it's a single floor structure, then it very well could be a loss. If it's a multi-level or a hotel, not that itself, but a different structure, they probably would do something to, fix that first floor. But
Yeah, I always wonder about these people that, have to go through these catastrophic events. And I always think, will they be selling their home? Will they decide to stay, invest, keep it, or, repair? I don't know. I always wonder about how a situation like this might affect someone. By the way, speaking of, did we get answers back on that poll?
We did.
And what's the
close to
I'll
80%.
have to. Here it is. Okay, we asked in my very flawed poll that Jeff and commenters also said, well, could have been worded better, and I completely agree. By the way, it was just a.
It was out in the limb.
Yeah, it
We were
was. It was just like,
yeah.
let's type it in and just get it out there. Does the chance of a hurricane hitting influence your viewpoint on moving to Florida? What would you guess?
Like I said, no.
Well, if it's Floridians answering, they're probably going to say no.
Well, you never know.
But like I said, I think people that were impacted by a hurricane might answer differently.
54% yes.
Oh, wow.
45% no.
I'm surprised by the results.
So it could be recency bias with what we're looking at, the subject matter on your screen.
Yeah.
People could be seeing this and being like, I want no part of this.
Right.
But
Yeah, but I'm surprised.
I've got a lot of friends up north, that I went to high school with, that I go visit when I go back home. And they say, oh, why would you want to live in Florida? All it does is rain there. Oh, it's too humid. And they don't even mention the hurricane aspect of it.
Oh,
They
my
say-
friends do.
They say, oh, it's too hot there. Oh, it's too humid. Oh, I heard it rains every single day for months. And I'm like, no, it rains somewhere, but not in your location every day. So I know that what we have our rainy season, that turns people off.
Yeah.
And they say, oh my gosh, it's so humid out there. And it must get to 100 and something. I said, well, no, it doesn't get to 100 and something because it's so humid. And then when it rains, it's 75 while you're cooking at 95.
Right, but I mean, a rain event or a temperature event in the summer is so different than a hurricane. Just think about
course.
the
No, I
implications.
agree.
I mean, you do have to. It does put your life kind of on hold. Everybody's like schools closed days before in preparation
The day
of,
after, yeah.
and then the aftermath, and then a lot of schools are used as shelters, and then businesses have to reopen. So I mean, give or take, depending on how much damage in the area, you're talking about sometimes like a week worth of your life that is kind of before and after. So it is a big deal to deal with hurricanes. It really is.
I just wonder, Val, if some of those people that are answering the question are not just saying only because of hurricanes. They're saying, well, I wouldn't want to move to Florida,
Well,
because of the
Of
heat
all
or
this-
because of the
right.
rain. and
Yeah,
because
'cause I do hear that a
there's
lot.
there's too much traffic there.
I do hear that a lot. However, I do want to. Do you guys remember going through your first hurricane in Florida? Do you guys remember that? Not really.
My
It's
first
always,
tropical storm.
it's always covering it, so it's hard for me to say like going through it.
Okay.
I should note I've never been at home for a hurricane. I've
Yeah.
always been in front of a camera.
Right.
Okay.
Same.
Okay. Same for you.
But Isaac
So-
was the first one
Okay.
in 2012 where I actually, and Isaac was a tropical storm and it moved parallel to Fort Myers. So I was working where you worked down in Fort Myers, and
Yeah.
you know, they didn't have us go out. They didn't have the meteorologist go out, but I was
Okay.
brand new. I'm like, oh, I want to check this out.
Yeah.
And I remember I went out to Fort Myers Beach, and
Yeah.
it was, 35, 40 mile per hour wind. I was trying to bike ride on the sand because that's what I did for exercise. My
you're
pedal
cute.
fell off. My pedal fell off as I was riding. So now I'm
Eric.
like a half a mile from my car. I'm getting nailed with rain, nailed with wind, but I'm loving it because I'm like, this is great. It's warm out. Meteorologist loves it.
Yeah.
And I walked my bike, and I remember one of the Orlando stations was there.
Yeah.
They wanted to talk to me and say, hey, what are you doing out here? And I was so nervous because I just started out. I'm like, well, I don't think I'm allowed to talk to you because I work for a TV station.
I work in the industry.
But I'm just checking it out. And it was my first kind
Hurricane,
of
good.
experience. It wasn't a hurricane. It was tropical storm, but the winds were a lot less, you know. And we weren't seeing the storm surge when that happened. But yeah,
so
that was
I want to
my
ask
first.
you this though, both of you, in terms of, from your first experience with your first hurricane in Florida, even though you both had to work through it until now, do you become kind of like a pro going through hurricanes? I mean, in terms of like how to deal with it, how to prep for them, knowing what to expect. Do you feel that you've become more experienced at dealing with hurricanes?
The moment you think you're a pro, you are no longer one.
Ooh, that's deep.
How about it's true?
And
That's
anything,
deep.
really. I mean, it seems like you're humbled, right? You're humbled one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could be on top of the world winning a world championship in a pinball tournament, and I think, all right, nobody's beating me. And then I play in this local thing, and I lose to somebody who's ranked 5,000. And, whether it's that or whether it's, I think I'm a pro, no hurricanes get me, you're always humbled.
Mm-hmm.
So you never want to be, arrogant or I got this because look at the Titanic, right? Titanic, a ship could never sink, and it did sink.
Well, they said, God could not even
Exactly.
be capable of sinking the ship.
You learn that anything's possible, but I do think that you gain, and I gain experience. My first hurricane, whether it was me reporting on the air or out in the field, or I know a heck of a lot more now than I did 12 years ago when I moved here. So yes, you do gain experience, but you're never perfect. You could be maybe better than some, or some could be better than you. But as long as you do what it takes to keep yourself and your property safe, then you're doing good.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
just-
that's-
And sometimes you can't.
You have to understand that no two hurricanes are the same.
Right.
And you have to be nimble with the mindset that you have to adapt when necessary. Be prepared, have a plan, but know that there is no mastering hurricane preparation or safety. You do the very best you can. But I think one step that does get overlooked is being weather aware and being informed and being educated and going beyond just seeing the track on Twitter. Anyone can look at the track on Twitter and be like, oh, it's going to hit here, hit there. The track didn't show you how lopsided this storm was.
No.
No, we did.
So, right.
Yeah.
So if you're on this program right now, you're curious about weather. You're maybe fascinated by weather. You have an interest in weather. And that, I think, is a big starting point. The people that understand the complexities of weather, and no one does that more than a meteorologist, will be best equipped to be prepared. But if you think you can be a pro at hurricane season, it's just no, you can't. There's no being, and that's my opinion.
Yeah.
No,
but-
you're right. And I'm very, very good at recognizing patterns.
Yeah.
Not just weather, but just, in life,
general,
with
yeah.
people, with whatever. And every time I see a pattern and I say, okay, I've seen this before, but I haven't seen the Fujiwara effect, right? Like I haven't seen it in action. I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I learned about it in school, but I've never seen, oh my gosh, look at this. There's a low pressure system that normally would kind of push Helene into our neck of the woods.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, this is a little bit different. This is a cutoff low. And this is attracting Helene. So this is keeping it further west than what it could go.
Yeah.
And it's bringing it really quickly. And look, devastating places like Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
It's just, so in my memory bank, I think, okay, now I got this one. So if something like this happens again, which what are the chances?
Yeah.
Then
Then
I
now
remember
you
that.
know.
I remember that pattern. But there's so many different patterns that you're never gonna
Right.
have the same one twice.
Right.
Or it's
So
very rare.
Do you think that was the main reason why all the computer models had it definitely headed always north?
Yes, of course.
That was definitely the reason why all the spaghetti models.
Again, it was beautiful last weekend. You remember Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We had high pressure over top of us.
Hold
I'm
on.
sorry.
JB's saying
I have an
something.
idea. Hold on. Can we pause this for 1 second? I have an idea.
Yeah. Who are you calling?
Satellite.
Ghostbusters.
Hey, can you flip the switch? I want to try to talk to Jim and Eagle. I know, but I'd like to just kind of hear his thoughts. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Stream center to Eagle. Stream center to Eagle. Do you copy? Check in. See what they got. I want
Yeah,
I want to
that's
hear.
good.
I want to hear
Let's
from
see.
Jim. He's
Are they
heading
heading
back in
to
Yeah.
base?
Stream center to Eagle. Stream center to Eagle. Do you copy? Oh, wait. Hold on. I have the wrong source routed in. Hold on, Jim. Wait, there it is. Maybe now. Stream center to Eagle. Stream center to Eagle. Do you copy?
Do you hear him? Yeah, I would be interested to see
I
what
want to know.
he saw.
I just want to know what Jim thought. Jim had got to
Yeah.
see this with his own two eyes. He's riding shotgun, if you will, in an Eagle, and as he's heading back in, one more time. Stream center to Eagle. Stream center to Eagle. Do you copy? Oh, we don't have him. Okay, it was worth a shot.
Yeah.
Or I can continue to work on it. Maybe
See if you
hold
can
on.
connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see his viewpoint. He's done this a bunch of
Right.
times.
So,
So in comparison.
What we were talking about before,
Yeah.
Hey, oh, you got it, Ron. I'm holding. Okay, I'm sorry, Val. Continue.
You were saying?
when we have two big features like that,
Yeah.
a high and a low, and they're both kind of attracting the storm into the same direction, the models are going to be much more in agreement. With Ian, we had a cold front that was coming down, right? And the storm was moving north. And it was like, okay, when is the cold front going to intercept? Because we know it's going to turn.
Yeah.
But when?
Right.
This one, we knew it can't turn right. It can't turn east because this high pressure's stopping it.
Right there. Yeah. It was
Can't turn
protecting
west.
us.
Can't turn west because here's this low.
Right.
So it's got to go in the middle.
Yeah.
So I really think that the models were in agreement so much.
Yeah.
And again, just off by a little.
A little bit,
And our
yeah.
in-house model was the best. It
Yeah.
was,
It really was. The graph, by the way, the graph model.
it's right when, you know, it's basically what Jeff and I would happen a couple days earlier.
Yeah.
The models were in such a tight envelope.
Hold that thought, Eric. Stream center to Eagle. Stream center to Eagle. Do you copy?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's
I hear
Jim.
something.
Hey,
Hi,
Jim. It's
Jim.
JB, Val, and Eric. I know you're heading back in. We just wanted to know real quick, while we have a stream audience here, you just saw a whole lot of damage across those two flights. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts, what you thought, because we're dealing with something historic here, and you saw it with your own two eyes. We saw it through the lens of a camera. What do you think?
Well, it was more than I expected. It was not as widespread, but there was a lot of sand around. Currently, we are over Gulfport looking for damage. I understand there's some flooding down here, so we are looking for it.
So how much longer are you going to be in the air, Jim? What's your expectation? We thought you were heading back to Tampa to land.
We are actually heading back to Tampa. We decided to stop by Gulfport and see how it was looking at.
Yeah, multitasking is hard.
Yeah. Take your time, Jim. We're here.
Yeah, take your time, Jim. Jim, was there any other observations from the sky that you noted, or anything that really stood out to you? You've been doing this a long time. You're a veteran photojournalist here. You've seen plenty of storms. So just seeing it from Eagle, was there anything that stood out before we let you go?
It was pretty widespread all the way from Clearwater down. We saw a lot of sand in roads, a lot of places, a lot of stuck cars. People were trying to get out and did not make it. There was sporadic damage here and there. There was no widespread where we saw like a complete block or two gone or with a lot of damage. It just seemed to be here and there with the houses. A few roofs were damaged. There's still some standing water on a lot of the roads. I guess that's why they're keeping people off Anna Maria Island. Anna Maria Island was pretty vacant when we were over it because I understand there's a mandatory evacuation. But it was widespread. There was hold on, I'm trying to find out where I am here. There we go. All right, I am looking for Albert Whitted. There we go. This is the Albert Whitted Airport in St. Pete. As you can see, it is flooded out right now.
Wow, yeah, you can see a lot of that water there, Jim, right by the airstrip.
Yeah, this airport is actually closed right now. The airport that Eagle takes off from every day is on Davis Island. It's Peter O. Knight, and there were some issues this morning getting to it. We had to wait for them to open up the roads, and even then, it took a while for our pilots to get to into the airport.
Well, Jim, we really appreciate you. We're going to follow you all the way in. Great work up there, documenting and capturing for our audience. We had people watching live from really around the world. We'll ask our audience here on YouTube Live and Facebook Live to drop in. Where are you watching from as we watch Eagle return to Tampa, Florida? And pass along, Jim, our very best. And thank you for doing what you do in Eagle and providing these live video, this live feed for us.
All right, great to do it. Thank you, JB.
All right, thank you. Jim Farquhar, everybody, in Eagle 8HT. And who you flying with, Jim? I'd like to give a shout out to the pilot today. Oh, I
think he left.
Oh, Jim, if you still have us, do you have the pilot's name? All right, I think we lost it. We'll try to pass it along if we can. Jim Farquhar, everybody, in Eagle 8 HD, filling in for Jim Hockett, although it's a rotation of photojournalists that we have in Eagle.
Great images.
Yeah, he did a great job up there today. Yeah. So I'm sorry, did I interrupt a thought there?
No, I pretty much finished, I think, what I was saying, right?
Yeah, we were talking about the trends and what we saw with Helene and
why, the models didn't really deviate from
that north.
Several days before.
So this is going to be the last live stream of the week. We might have additional press conferences on WFLA.com, Facebook, but we've had, a ton of them already throughout the day. I mean, we've heard from Governor DeSantis. We've heard from Tampa City government. We've heard from Pinellas County government. We've heard from Senator Rick Scott. There's been a lot of public officials, politicians that have been speaking and voicing their support for the affected areas. So our live streaming coverage here on Tracking the Tropics will be concluding here momentarily as Eagle lands. I'd like to thank Val and Eric, and really a special thank you to Eric, because Eric's been here so much in that chair.
That's true.
Helping with our coverage and providing his experience and expertise. I'll shout out some folks that are joining us, maybe some interesting locations here. Baby Kay and family from Mobile, Alabama. We've got Bjorn watching from Norway. Faye from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Acadian Proud from Maryland. KK from Pinellas Park. We've got Marcos joining us from California. Dynamic Solution from Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
Andrew from Melbourne, Australia.
Australia.
Kuramasan from Long Island, New York. Wendy from Ontario, Canada. Spring Hall from Savannah, Georgia. Teresa from Central Oregon. Chelsea, our moderator, says just a lot of Canadians in our stream today. And yeah, you got to love occasional jokes. Somebody saying that they're watching from Antarctica. We certainly know they're not watching from Antarctica.
Well, you know,
Sometimes.
I see a lot of Ontario, license plate Canada, during the off season, or I should say,
That's who we
during
should
the
ask.
winter time here. So I'm sure they're checking in on their friends, maybe their family,
Yeah.
their houses, or whatnot.
But that's who we should send out the poll to next time. If you're a fellow Canadian, would hurricanes change your mind about
we have a
moving
lot
to
of folks
Florida?
from Toronto that come down
Yeah.
for,
Yeah,
for the
that's
Blue
true.
Jays. The Blue Jays are very popular in Dunedin.
Oh.
So people asking for an update on Stoppy. I have not. Eric, you got anything? I don't have anything.
I don't know. I mean, we had that picture with the words, R.I.P. Stoppy, but that was before the stop sign even got covered.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely have to let folks know. Maybe on the next Track in the Tropics, when you and Rebecca and whoever are on here next Tuesday, maybe we can get an update. I'll ask Jeff Patterson if I see him before you do.
If anybody lives in the Cedar Key area and wants to go to G Street and take a picture of that stop sign and let us know if it's still standing, you can send it to us. I will tweet it out. I promise.
Yeah, I don't
I'll
think
put it on Instagram. I promise.
Probably not a good idea, at least for the next couple of days.
Yep.
I'm assuming the floodwater is still pretty bad up there in Cedar Key, but over the weekend or early next week,
Chelsea, who's one of our great moderators, along with Michelle and Lynn.
Thank you, Chelsea, Michelle, and Lynn.
Yeah, doing a great job moderating our YouTube live comment section. Chelsea says that she saw drone video, and in that drone video, Stoppy was uprooted and is no longer there on G Street in Cedar Key, which again is more of an indicator as to how strong this storm was in comparison to Idalia, because Stoppy infamously held on for dear life.
Who
in that
named
storm.
the sign Stoppy?
I think our viewers, right?
Our commenters.
Yeah, that was a big
me.
deal last year. Stoppy the stop sign.
I'm dying.
I still
It was
don't
like Toy
remember
Story.
exactly
I'm like,
who.
I don't remember
Like-
who. I just
like
remember.
Forky.
Yes, we talked about Toy Story. We said something about Forky. So
oh yeah.
Like
laugh.
Forky. Which, if you've ever seen that movie.
and there was
It's
another
just
Great
sign
movie, great
that I
movie.
named Twisty. That was the do not enter sign.
Yes,
because
that's
that
right.
that sucker was twisted in the wind. So I don't know if that made it either.
Michelle says it was the chat. Yeah, I don't think I had
No.
Toy Story
The
on
chat
my
named
it.
mind during hurricane coverage.
That's catchy.
I'd like to say it was me, but I don't think I come up with Stoppy.
I'll tell you what, Stoppy has stuck because every I see on average when I look at this screen here in the stream center to my left, I see on average about 25 or so comments at once, and they scroll up, so it's just a scrolling rotation of 25 comments. There's always one about that stop sign. about
Yeah,
Oh my
Stoppy.
yeah,
God.
it's crazy.
I
Yeah,
love
Always.
it.
I told Jeff, I said, this is an iconic picture. You need to get back there. And he did. He got right back there.
If I ever go up that way, I'm
I'm taking a selfie
I'm
with
taking
it.
a
Yeah.
selfie with Stoppy. Or maybe it'll be Stoppy 2.0.
Or maybe,
A new
maybe it'll be the
Stoppy.
same sign they just kind of put back in. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll never know, right?
Yeah.
It does have the
You'll never
sign, the G Street sign
It's
on it.
attached to it, yeah.
So it is not, if it floated away, it's not just any stop sign.
That's true. That's true. But I'm sure they'll put a G Street sign on
Yeah.
the next Stoppy.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah. This could be like, when you're young and your parents,
Yeah.
your pet passes away and your parents get a similar looking rabbit, bird, hamster.
Tampa Strong. Check out the Tampa
Oh.
skyline.
That's awesome.
Eagle 8
Beautiful.
HD coming in for a landing here soon. We really appreciate our entire stream audience, everybody who was commenting along. And again, our stream format here is non-traditional. It's not like television. We don't ever try to be like TV. It's just a very different format. So we've been documenting in real time Helene as a Category 4 hurricane, now a post-tropical cyclone churning over the heart of the country, right in the middle of our country. I think right now over either Tennessee or
Kentucky,
moving into the Midwest. Folks, we really appreciate everyone joining us and sending in their pictures and videos to WFLA.com/report it. One more time, I would like to shout out the name of the person who did not get appropriate credit for all of those incredible images from Spring Hill, and that's Nick Holmes. Can we share, moderators, one more time? Give some love to the Higher Perspectives Drone Photography Facebook page, because somebody sent in Nick's work and put their name on it, and that just, I hate to see it.
Yeah.
So Nick deserves proper credit. Nick Holmes, a lot of talent there, clearly, with the work that he does, and go give him some love on Facebook, you guys. We really appreciate his work. You'll see it tonight on WFLA News Channel. Any final thoughts, Val and Eric?
You know what? Thanks for everyone who joined us for this one. It's been quite a week. There's some other things in the tropics that are brewing, but I don't see any really directly impacting the Bay Area or even Florida. So let's just keep our fingers crossed for a quiet rest of the tropical season.
That's right. And in order to stay safe, always stay informed, and you know where you can find all your great info here at WFLA Now.
And
Tampa Strong.
TampaOid.com.
Yeah, why not? Let me just
plug
Why not?
away. Go.
Let me plug it in. Obviously, this is our English streaming, WFLA Now, but you can also find us in Spanish on tampahoy.com. For all you bilingual or Spanish speakers out there, we're also just the same thing here as JB and his streaming center. We offer all the information in Spanish. Every time that there is an update from the National Hurricane Center, we get online and we try to communicate to our viewers so that they are up to speed with what's going on, and also keeping them informed so that they can stay safe.
You know what's crazy about that, Eric? Is that when we have a storm and Vigilando los Trópicos.
Very
right?
good,
Thank
JB. That
you.
pronunciation.
Thank you. I'm working on it. So when Val is on Vigilando with Jerry, who of course tees up Val to answer questions in Espanol. What's really interesting about that is as the storm is making its approach and perhaps impacting some Latino communities in our, countries to the south, we have an international audience that join their live streams.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you,
Spanish speaking.
You guys would be surprised, but we had people from Mexico, because obviously before it came into the Gulf of
Cancun,
Mexico,
right.
Helene was going through, Cancun. It also, some of those exterior bans were affecting Cuba. We had people from Cuba that were listening, watching in, asking questions. Even people from Venezuela were writing into us. Obviously, we had our local folks. We have a lot of loyal audience from Ocala too, which is not in our viewing area. However, people wanting to know in Orange County, Orlando, and whatnot. But yeah, it was a surprise. We did get a lot of people, Spanish speakers in the Panhandle area, which I was surprised about, wanting to know what was going to happen. So Panama City, people from Panama City, Georgia, we had a lot of Spanish speakers that were asking questions from Georgia as well. So yeah, it was it's an international, basically, way of getting information. And we did have a lot of folks that sometimes they were writing to us from even Europe. From Spain, we got somebody that were saying that they had family in St. Pete. So sometimes they write because they live somewhere else in the world, and they're like, oh, my kids live in St. Pete, or, my sister lives in Clearwater, and wanting to know what the situation was. So we were able to help a lot of folks that way.
It's an awesome platform. Jerry and Val do an amazing job. It's very rare that there's that level of in-depth hurricane, tropical storm, awareness, that type of programming that goes on in Espanol. So what you guys do is awesome.
Thank
it's also
you.
on Spotify, I think, and
Thank
Apple
you.
Podcasts. You guys
That's
are
right,
you guys
yes.
are big time, man.
And I
we
do
love
have to
it.
say, we wouldn't be able to do it without your help, JB. You obviously are, for us, you were the catalyst of launching tampahoy.com, and we so appreciate all your help and everything that you do so that we can get that information out to the Spanish-speaking community.
I just wanted people to be able to get good information in Spanish. That's why. No, honestly, that like hurricanes don't care what language you speak.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So we have
So true.
we have a lot of folks that can't watch us in English. That doesn't mean that they don't deserve coverage. So Val, really appreciate you and the entire team, the
Yes.
Tampa Oy team. Find them at tampaoy.com or Tampa Oy.
Or you can watch us Monday through Friday on the CW if you're local at 10:30 on Noticias Tampa Hoy. It's a Spanish newscast live every Monday through Friday. Again, 10:30, channel 38 on the CW.
And
here in
Tracking
Tampa.
the Tropics streams in English on Tuesdays at 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central, or whenever storms form. We are clearly in extended coverage. Really, we are most watched when we actually have a storm that we're tracking, but we have regular episodes on Tuesdays at 12:30, 11:30 Central. As a result, we're always big on hurricane education and talking to everybody about the science that goes into forecasting and understanding the models and preparing for hurricane season. So even when the tropics are completely empty and quiet, we are live on Tuesdays talking about what you need to know to be ready for when the next hurricane hits.
That's right.
And your show, Vigilando, streams what time?
Vigilando streams on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock. We've been doing so since the beginning of hurricane season, and we'll continue to do so until the end, which is November 30th. So you can definitely tune in, like I said, Wednesdays, 4 o'clock on Vigilando los Trópicos. And like JB said, you can watch us on Apple TV. What else, JB? Our website, tampahoy.com.
We're all over the place. A lot of platforms. We'll get out on this. Is there really another storm coming next week, Eric and
I
Val?
shouldn't have said anything in the tropics, huh?
Good job.
So there's an area in the Caribbean that we're going to be watching. This one looks like it's going to cross the Yucatan and go in toward the Bay of Campeche, southwest Gulf of Mexico. Right now, the models kind of take this into western Louisiana, a very, very weak system, and still a very low chance of development. I don't have that feeling with this one that I had with Helene several days out, that this was going to be a big impact for us. So I think this one's going to stay away from us, whether it develops or not. But again, I really think, JB and Val, that we're going to have a pretty active October, and I wouldn't be surprised if once November hits and the fronts start coming through, if maybe, something forms in the Caribbean and heads into the Gulf. You just never know. So we're going to be continuously informing everybody and, preparing people, keeping everybody safe. Obviously, this is a backlogged hurricane season, meaning most of the storms, the vast majority coming toward, the end of hurricane season, or at least past the peak.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't want any more hurricanes.
No,
but
we
if
don't.
We
don't
get
want
any
any more at
more
all.
tropical storms, we are here for you. Got you covered on Tracking the Tropics interactively here on WFLA Now from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida. And again, a big thank you to our entire team. I want to shout out the entire Max Defender 8 weather team with Chief Meteorologist Jeff Bear Ardelli, meteorologists Eric Stone, Rebecca Barry, Amanda Holly, Lee Spann, and Tampa Oy's very own, the one and only Val Simpson, who is the only one on the Max Fender 8 weather team, I should add, that is doing this in 2 languages.
Oh, boy.
Which is pretty wild. We really appreciate the Max Fender 8 weather team lending their time and experience on stream. We appreciate everybody watching wherever you have been watching from on Tracking the Tropics. One last thing, everyone be safe out there. Take care of one another. Look out for one another. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all of those impacted, those who have lost friends or loved ones, maybe even pets. We haven't heard anything about that just yet, but we understand what happens with hurricanes and tropical storms, especially ones that reach this level, Category 4 before landfall. So our thoughts and prayers are with everybody in Tampa Bay, Florida's Big Bend, and inland into Georgia and other states that have been impacted by Hurricane Helene, which we just hope gets shredded apart and is no longer a talking point. We will recover, we will rebuild, and we will do so better than ever before. Thank you so much for joining us, folks, and we'll see you next time on Tracking the Tropics.
Find Tracking the Tropics on these platforms. And for storm updates, the latest models, and helpful resources, visit trackingthetropics.tv. Thank you for watching Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric. Find Tracking the Tropics on these platforms. And for storm updates, the latest models, and helpful resources, visit trackingthetropics.tv.